Chapter 1743. Who's speaking? It seems to be beside the taboo dragon phoenix. That butterfly? It's speaking in human language? The human emperors were shocked as they discussed softly. The dragon phoenix's true body looked at the blood-colored butterfly before him, and his breathing turned heavier unknowingly. He merely tried his best to keep his eyes open without blinking. He was afraid that this was just a hallucination. He was afraid that the butterfly would vanish the moment he blinked. Prior to this, the blood-colored butterfly had appeared many times. However, this time round, it was clear that the blood butterfly was different. It seems like the blood butterfly is speaking? A witch from the upper world frowned slightly. A bloodline phenomenon that possesses sentience? Elder Feng did not know why, but he felt increasingly frustrated and uneasy. Elder Feng's expression darkened as he said coldly, "Who cares what it is? Shatter." A dark green glint shone brightly in Elder Feng's eyes, and an extremely powerful force burst forth from his palm, crushing towards the blood-colored butterfly. This time round, Elder Feng did not hold back and even enveloped the dragon phoenix's true body within. He did not want to search the soul anymore. He merely wanted to eliminate the uneasiness in his heart as soon as possible. The blood-colored butterfly seemed motionless. However, her pair of wings trembled slightly. The tremor was extremely small and difficult to discern with the naked eye. The speed was also shockingly fast, and in the eyes of others, it was as though it was motionless the entire time. However, after that slight tremor, a terrifying energy fluctuation burst forth from the void. The surrounding void collapsed instantly. Immediately after, blood spewed and splattered in all directions in the firmaments. Right in front of the living beings of the 10,000 races, Elder Feng's extended palm shattered into a blood mist. That was not all. That terrifying power was still spreading from Elder Feng's palm towards his arm. In the blink of an eye, half of Elder Feng's arm shattered into countless blood foams that scattered down. Elder Feng shrieked tragically and retracted his palm hurriedly. His reaction was extremely fast as well. He swiped his storage bag with his other hand and withdrew a white bone saber. Gritting his teeth, he slashed at his own arm. Elder Feng took advantage of the fact that the energy waves had not spread to his body to chop off the severed arm. Blood gushed out like a fountain. It was just a broken arm. To Elder Feng it was nothing. But this kind of pain was bone deep. Elder Feng took 2 steps back and circulated his primordial spirit. His severed arm rapidly grew back. However, his expression became extremely unsightly. He had originally thought that there was no one or power in the lower realm that could harm him. Who would have thought that he would suffer such a blow? The 6 sorcerers from the upper realm beside him had just reacted. No one would have thought that Elder Feng would slip up and get injured. There was an uproar all over Tianhuang mainland. What's going on? Long Ran clenched his fists and said in a deep voice, "Could it be that there's still a chance?" "It's possible." The old storyteller seemed to be deep in thought as he muttered, "Araki Takashi was originally a mortal without a spirit root, but an expert defied the heavens and changed his fate, allowing him to step onto the path of cultivation. Even I can't compare to this expert." Long Ran asked in surprise, "Are you talking about that blood-colored butterfly? Can that butterfly defend against the 7 sorcerers from the upper realm?" "Sigh, I don't know either." The old storyteller shook his head. Above the firmaments, the 7 sorcerers from the upper realm summoned their weapons one after another. Some of them were bone staffs while others were bone sabers and bone spears. Although they were of different shapes, every single weapon was surrounded by a powerful aura. The moment those weapons were summoned, the void around them could not withstand the pressure and began to collapse. The 7 sorcerers from the upper realm glared at the blood-colored butterfly coldly with hostile expressions. "What are you?" Elder Feng narrowed his eyes and asked coldly. The blood-colored butterfly did not reply, and the surrounding space blurred for a moment. Immediately after, right in front of everyone, the blood-colored butterfly transformed into a woman. She wore long blood-colored robes and had black hair that cascaded down like a waterfall. Her expression was indifferent and she was extremely beautiful. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat when he looked at that familiar figure and his eyes turned red. All the living beings of Tianhuang mainland raised their heads one after another and looked at the blood-robed woman. For some reason, the woman was extremely beautiful. However, after wearing the blood-colored robes, she gave off a unique aura that was unforgettable. More importantly, the coldness and arrogance in the blood-robed woman's eyes was as though she did not care about anyone at all. The moment the blood-robed woman appeared, the emperors of the human race, Long Ran and the others instinctively lowered their heads. "It's her!" At the borders of the North region, Monkey suddenly said, "Brother Monkey, you know her?" Ling Hu, Ching Ching and the others turned and asked curiously. "We've met once," Monkey recalled with a look of reminiscence. "However, that was many years ago. In Tsang Lang mountain range, she suddenly looked for me and imparted a cultivation technique to me." Pausing for a moment, Monkey scratched his head and said in confusion, "Even now, I don't understand why. That woman must be someone that you can't forget, right?" Little Fox tilted her head slightly and pouted her pink lips, murmuring softly, "It's that senior." Mo Ing of Divine Phoenix Island was excited when he saw the blood-robed woman. Back then, this blood-robed woman was the one who descended upon Divine Phoenix Island domineeringly and swept through everything, taking away the Divine Phoenix bone. From that day on, Mo Ing was subdued by her. The capital of Great Zhou. A woman in a pale yellow dress looked into the skies with a complicated gaze. She was bitter and disappointed as she murmured softly, "So, it's her?" Above the firmaments, Su Zimo looked at the back view of the blood-robed woman with an emotional expression. Finally, he could not help but call out softly, "And Miss Dai, is that you?" "Of course, it's me." The blood-robed woman turned around and looked at Su Zimo, who was not far away, with a smile. Su Zimo was stunned. That voice had sounded in his ears countless times. That was a face that haunted him to this day as well. Su Zimo had never expected that he would reunite with Dai Yu under such circumstances. There were countless things in Su Zimo's heart that he wanted to tell Dai Yu. He wanted to tell Dai Yu everything that had happened to him ever since they parted. However, when these thousands of words reached the tip of his tongue, they became somewhat incoherent and stuttered. "Miss Dai, why are you—" "I've never thought that you would." Su Zimo had an uneasy expression. At this moment, he no longer had the domineering aura of Wu Huang and was like a shy young man. Dai Yu did not say anything and merely looked at Su Zimo with a smile. "Miss Dai, thank you for the gifts you left for me. The first 2 gifts were of great help to me. However, I don't know about the 3rd gift." Su Zimo's mind was in a mess and he did not know where to start. He just blurted out whatever came to mind. Right then, Dai Yu spoke and interrupted Su Zimo. "The 3rd gift is me." Genius 1 second. Remember this site address. Mobile version reading website. Chapter 1744. When he heard that, Su Zimo felt a boom in his mind and his heart thumped wildly, as though it was about to jump out of his mouth. Su Zimo had never heard such touching words before. Furthermore, they came from Dai Yu. However, was she referring to Dai Yu's arrival to help him, or did she mean something else? Su Zimo seemed to have thought of something as his face flushed red and he was even more flustered. "What are you thinking about?" Dai Yu looked at Su Zimo with a fake smile, as though she could read his mind. Su Zimo's face flushed even redder. "And nothing," Su Zimo replied hurriedly with an uneasy expression. For some reason, Su Zimo felt that Dai Yu seemed to be smiling more now that they met. Back when Dai Yu imparted the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness to him in Pingyang Town, she had a cold expression the entire time and did not smile at all. Su Zimo took a deep breath of air and probed, "Miss Dai, what's the meaning of this 3rd gift? Actually, even before I left, I did not expect that you would be able to cultivate to this extent." Dai Yu's expression turned emotional as well. She was well aware of how difficult it was for a mortal with an ordinary bloodline, no sect, no resources, and no backing to rise up in the cruel world of cultivation. Although she left Su Zimo with the Siraka flower, Divine Phoenix bone and mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness back then, Dai Yu was still alive. However, She also knew that the chances of Su Zimo growing were extremely slim. Although Su Zimo had once said that he wanted to look for her, she merely smiled and did not take it seriously. Therefore, when Dai Yu met Su Zimo once more and saw that Su Zimo had already cultivated to this extent, she was extremely happy and the smile on her face naturally widened as well. Dai Yu continued, the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. When all 12 demon kings are cultivated and the blood butterfly is formed, I will sense it and my consciousness will descend upon this phenomenon. A look of realization flashed through Su Zimo's eyes. Previously, when he cultivated his bloodline phenomenon, although he could form the blood butterfly phenomenon, it was slightly illusory. However, the blood butterfly that was formed after all 12 demon kings were cultivated, it was corporeal. In other words, he could only activate the true blood butterfly phenomenon after he cultivated the 12 demon kings. Then, right now, Su Zimo looked to Dai Yu and hesitated. After all, there were some things he could not say. Dai Yu did not try to hide anything. She nodded and said, what you see now is of course not my real body. At best, it can only be considered as a doppelganger. Dai Yu's Dai Yu to Dai Yu, Dai Yu, Dai Yu's Dai Yu was merely to her consciousness. Elder Feng and the other sorcerer tribesmen from the upper world did not dare to act rashly. To Dai to the of Yu's Dai to Dai. They had arrived with their true bodies. Furthermore, the woman before them was merely a bloodline phenomenon and could not even be considered as a clone. Fufu. One of the female witches from the upper world was already jealous of Dai Yu's appearance and aura to begin with. Now that she knew of Dai Yu's background, she could not help but scoff coldly. I was wondering what sort of a big shot it was. So, it's just a bloodline phenomenon. What's with the pretense? Dai Yu's smile vanished gradually when she heard the words of the female witch. How dare a few mystic witches spout nonsense in front of me? Dai Yu turned around and looked at Elder Feng and the others. She said indifferently and attacked without hesitation. Without channeling any dermic arts or divine powers, Dai Yu merely extended her palm calmly. Sparkling like jade, it shone with a pure white luster and slapped towards the female witch from the upper world. Dai. The female witch and 2 other witches from the upper world beside her attacked at the same time and released 3 lesser divine powers. Heaven Anchoring Incantation. Ultimate Incantation. Heaven Encirclement Incantation. Lesser divine powers as such were not divine powers released by the experts of Tianhuang mainland. The lesser divine powers of the experts of the upper world seemed to have undergone some sort of metamorphosis and could even suppress Su Zimo's peerless divine powers with ease. The 3 lesser divine powers were released at the same time, as though they wanted to destroy the world. However, the moment the 3 lesser divine powers were released, they were crushed by Dai Yu's palm and turned into nothingness without causing any ripples. The 3 lesser divine powers could not even stop Dai Yu in the slightest, let alone injure her. Dai Yu's palm slapped down mercilessly and the bodies of the 3 witches from the upper world exploded instantly, turning into a blood mist. The essence spirits of the 3 witches from the upper world did not manage to escape and were killed by Dai Yu's palm. Tianhuang mainland was shaken. The emperors of the human race and the living beings of the 10,000 races widened their eyes in disbelief. In their eyes, the powerhouses of the sorcerer tribe from the upper world, who were unstoppable and undefeatable like gods, were as weak as ants in front of the blood-robed woman's palm. A single slap killed 3 of them. Way too strong. Long Ran was secretly speechless and could not help but gulp. This is merely a bloodline phenomenon of hers. How strong is her true body in terms of combat strength? Su Zimo was not surprised at all. Demoness. Elder Feng's heart skipped a beat as he said in a deep voice, "You had better not be ruthless. If you force me into a corner, I'll report this matter back to the witch world. If we know that there's a creation Qinglian here, the ones who descend won't be experts of the mystic witch level. Were you the one who called him a beast earlier on?" Dai Yu ignored Elder Feng's threat and shifted her gaze towards him. A divine glint flashed through Dai Yu's eyes. The void around Elder Feng collapsed instantly. In the next moment, Elder Feng's physical body began to crumble into pieces and turned into a pool of blood. I'm going to destroy this mainland and let blood flow like rivers. Elder Feng's primordial spirit let out a final shrill cry. His essence spirit burned and used some sort of secret skill, turning into a streak of light that shot into the clouds and disappeared into the gigantic tear in the firmaments. You guys are finished. The remaining 3 upper world witches were pale as they looked at Dai Yu, Su Zimo and the others and laughed maniacally. The experts of the witch world will definitely descend upon this place once they receive the news. At that time, all of you and all living beings on this mainland will have to accompany Elder Feng in death. The 3 upper world witches hollered with menacing expressions. Is that so? Dai Yu's expression was indifferent and she was unmoved as she said indifferently, you guys can accompany him in death first. Dai Yu slapped down with her palm. The remaining 3 upper world witches turned into 3 clouds of blood mist without any corpses and their essence spirits were destroyed. Silence filled the entire world. The living beings of the 10,000 races were shocked. Just now, the 7 upper world witches were extremely strong and arrogant. However, the arrival of the blood-robed woman destroyed all 7 upper world witches with ease. None of them were spared. Everyone go to sleep now. End of chapter. Chapter 1745. After Dai Yu killed 7 experts of the upper world, the 4 emperors of the witch race beside her were so scared that their faces turned pale and they shivered. One of the emperors of the witch race had a terrified expression and his voice trembled, as though he wanted to explain something. Dai Yu did not even look at them. With her back facing the 4 of them, she waved her red sleeves gently. The voids collapsed and the world trembled. Boom! An extremely terrifying force crashed into the bodies of the 4 rulers of the shaman tribe. The bodies of the 4 rulers exploded on the spot and turned into a cloud of blood mist. Their essence spirits were destroyed on the spot as well. Although they had not met for many years, Dai Yu's actions were still the same as before, decisive and arrogant. The 4 emperors of the witch race were killed without even having the chance to beg for mercy. It was useless for the emperors to beg for mercy. Dai Yu could not be bothered to listen either. A single wave of her sleeves was akin to wiping away 4 specks of dust. The 4 emperors of the witch race were dead. Dai Yu raised her head slightly and looked at the glowing crack in the firmaments, murmuring softly, it's no wonder why the mystic witches were able to descend here unscathed. Su Zimo explained, 8,000 years ago, during the great calamity of the human race, someone used a secret skill to summon the senior human emperor who ascended from Tianhuang mainland. When the senior human emperor heard the news, he broke through the world of Tianhuang mainland and descended forcefully despite being severely injured to help the human race tide through that calamity. Before the senior human emperor left, he told me that his descent caused the heaven and earth of Tianhuang mainland to be incomplete and that there might be other changes in the future. There was a hint of surprise in Dai Yu's tone. However, her expression was calm. To be able to break through this heaven and earth and endure the heaven and earth laws of the lower world without dying, the human emperor is rather capable. Su Zimo was secretly speechless. The senior human emperor was extremely strong and suppressed the 10,000 races. He was invincible in the lower world and had ascended to the upper world for eons. Yet, Dai Yu merely said that he was rather capable. Su Zimo smiled. Back then, I even asked the senior human emperor about the great wilderness and you. What did you find out? Dai Yu's eyes flickered and rippled like water as she asked with a smile. Su Zimo shook his head and said, it's nothing much. I just know that there are 3,000 worlds in the upper realm, and the Great Wasteland domain is one of them. After all, Senior Renhuang is not from the Great Wilderness. He only mentioned some things about the Great Wilderness, but he has never heard of you. With his cultivation, he has heard of De Huang but not me? Dai Yu raised her brows and asked, what did you ask back then? Su Zimo was slightly taken aback as he said, I'm just asking Senior Human Emperor if he's heard of Dai Yu. But is there something wrong? Dai Yu seemed to have thought of something as she sighed and said softly, in the upper realm, there are less than 5 people who know the name Dai Yu. A look of realization flashed through Su Zimo's eyes. Dai Yu must have had a Taoist name in the upper realm and in the wilderness. Naturally, the human emperor had not heard of Dai Yu when he asked him about it. It was similar to how in Tianhuang mainland, although the name Araki Takashi was known to the world, not many people knew that Araki Takashi's name was Su Zimo. Only those closest to him knew about it. There were less than 5 people who knew of the name Dai Yu as well. He was one of them. At that thought, Su Zimo felt a sense of warmth and pride in his heart. Dai Yu said, "If you have the chance to meet him again, you can ask him about Shui Dai of the Great Wilderness." Su Zimo smiled. "That'll have to wait for me to ascend to the upper realm." "If you want to ascend to the upper realm, you can do it with your current cultivation." Dai Yu looked at Su Zimo and nodded slightly with a hint of admiration. "It's truly beyond my expectations that you can cultivate to this point. It's all thanks to the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness, the Siraka flower and the divine phoenix bone." Su Zimo said, "If not for Miss Dai's arrangements, I would have died a long time ago." Dai Yu said, "Although I left you 3 gifts back then, it's up to your own efforts and fortune to see how far you can go. In other words, if you didn't cultivate to this point and condense the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness, you won't be able to see me and I won't bother about you." That sounded like Dai Yu's style and sounded cold and heartless. Dai Yu continued, "Something unexpected happened to you. The divine phoenix bone that I left for you fused with the dragon blood and evolved into a dragon phoenix." When he heard Dai Yu's words, Su Zimo felt as though he had returned to the past in the courtyard of Pingyang Town and the days when Dai Yu brought him to the path of cultivation. Su Zimo felt a sense of pride and could not help but laugh. "Miss Dai, my achievements aren't limited to this. There's also Qinglian's clone, right? I've already seen it." Dai Yu's expression was calm as usual as she looked in the direction of Kunlun ruins. Qinglian's true body was there and she did not reveal any bloodline aura. However, she could not hide from Dai Yu's perception. "That's not all." Su Zimo's eyes were clear and shone brightly. Dai Yu pondered for a moment and shook her head. "I don't know about that. I can only wait for you to tell me." Su Zimo's heart jolted. To think that Dai Yu could not sense the existence of Wu Dao's true body despite her strength. Wu Dao's true body was indeed an anomaly. Su Zimo opened his mouth and wanted to say that Wu Dao's true body was the real body. However, on second thought, he did not say it. Su Zimo did not want to hide anything from Dai Yu. That was because even now, he could not find the location of Wu Dao's true body. Furthermore, in the depths of his heart, he was secretly looking forward to the day when Wu Dao's true body could meet Dai Yu personally. To be precise, Wu Dao's true body was Su Zimo. Right now, the Dragon Phoenix true body and Qinglian's true body were not the true him. Right now, Dai Yu was not the true Dai Yu either. The moment Wu Dao's true body met Dai Yu, it would be their true reunion. When Dai Yu saw that Su Zimo wanted to say something but hesitated, she did not probe further and merely smiled. Ignoring the gazes of the living beings of the 10,000 races, she pulled Su Zimo's wrist naturally and said, "Let's go." Right in front of everyone, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as Dai Yu tugged at his wrist. Blushing, he asked instinctively, "Where are we going?" Dai Yu's gaze landed on the ancestral ground of the witch race with a cold expression. The witch race summoned their clansmen from the upper realm to bully you. If I hadn't descended, you would have been dead. I can't let this matter go so easily. I have to stand up for you. Most of Su Zimo's attention was on Dai Yu's palm. He felt that her palm was indescribably soft and delicate. In fact, he even had the urge to take the initiative to hold Dai Yu's hand. Su Zimo smiled. Actually, speaking of this matter, the emperor of the human race was the one who descended from the upper realm and bullied them first. Oh. Dai Yu's expression was calm as she said indifferently, "You can bully others, but others can't bully you." Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 1746. If someone else were to say this, it would naturally be unreasonable. However, no one dared to question it when it came from Dai Yu. Furthermore, it seemed logical and justified. In the blink of an eye, Yu had already brought Su Zimo to the ancestral ground of the witch race. At that moment, there were more than 100,000 witches gathered in the valley of the ancestral ground, looking up at Yu and Su Zimo in the skies. Some of the witches were so scared that they trembled and knelt on the ground, begging pitifully. However, some of them stood with their heads held high and shouted fearlessly, "Demoness, don't be arrogant. Just now, the experts of the witch race in the upper world have received the news. Before long, they'll descend and kill you. Demoness, I advise you to leave quickly." Yu's expression was calm when she heard the shouts and curses below. There was no emotion in her eyes. Su Zimo glanced sideways. He could tell that Yu truly did not care. Who would care if an ant was waving its arms beneath their feet and flaunting its might? Yu did not put on any airs and merely extended her palms slowly, pressing down. Her movements were extremely slow. But when this lustrous white palm descended, the sky suddenly darkened. Some of the witches who were cursing in the valley suddenly shut their mouths and widened their eyes, feeling as though a huge shadow had shrouded them. Endless despair filled the eyes of many of the witches. Many sorcerer tribesmen tried their best to escape from the valley. However, no matter how they tried to escape, they could not escape from that gigantic shadow. It was as though the heavens had collapsed. There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to hide. Under this shadow, no living being could survive. Just now, the witches who were still cursing had already broken down mentally as they knelt on the ground, crying and begging for mercy. Some of the patriarchs of the witch race summoned their dharma treasures and released divine powers one after another, striking the shadow in the skies. However, those dharma treasures and divine powers did not cause any ripples when they entered the shadow. All dharma treasures and divine powers were reduced to ashes with a gentle touch from Yu's palm. Yu's palm descended slowly. There was clearly an endless void between her and the valley beneath her. However, it was as though the end of the world had arrived in the valley as cries, roars, screams, pleas, and tragic cries intertwined. Yu's palm pressed down. Boom! There was a deafening sound. The entire Tianhuang mainland, however, seemed to quiver. All the voices from before had vanished in the blink of an eye. After that loud bang, Tianhuang mainland fell into a long period of silence. Everything was silent. Emperors of the human race and experts, of course. Yu, die. What replaced it was a huge five-fingered palm print that was deeply indented. It was extremely shocking. Within the five-fingered palm, the color of blood filled the air, and all life was extinguished. Die. Back then, he was almost killed by the cultivators of Joyful Clan. Before Yu left, she had annihilated the entire Joyful Clan. That was Yu's method. The witch race did not have any good intentions when they summoned the experts of the upper world. If Yu had not descended this time round and the experts of the upper world slaughtered wantonly, there would be even more living beings and races that would be wiped out in Tianhuang mainland. The sorcerer tribe had only themselves to blame for ending up like this. Su Zimo was already mentally prepared, but everyone else was scared out of their wits and their hearts were trembling. Even the emperors of the human race, Long Ran, and the others were pale. "He's way too domineering." Long Ran gulped and murmured, "He's only helping Zimo vent his anger, and yet, he destroyed the witch race so casually. If this expert is enraged, what kind of scene would it be?" A Kuan ruler beside him took a deep breath and calmed himself down. Fortunately, they're not our enemies." The old storyteller's eyes were still filled with worry as he said softly, "If what Elder Feng said is true and more experts of the upper world will descend, I'm afraid this senior won't be able to defend against them single-handedly. After all, it's difficult for two fists to fight against four hands. Furthermore, the upper world is vast and there's always someone stronger." The other emperors frowned slightly at the mention of that. To be precise, the crisis of Tianhuang mainland was not over yet. Above the firmaments. After killing the witch race, Yu retracted her palm with a calm expression, as though she had done something extremely ordinary. Yu glanced sideways and saw that Su Zimo wanted to say something but hesitated. What questions do you have? Ask away. Miss Dai, will we be able to meet again after I ascend to the upper world? Not necessarily. Dai Yu replied, there are 3,000 worlds in the upper world and every single world is countless times larger than Tianhuang mainland. Not to mention the 3,000 worlds, even in the vast wilderness, with my cultivation base, there are many unknown places that I haven't explored. Normally speaking, there are a few possibilities for your dragon phoenix body to ascend. Ascending to the dragon realm, ascending to the Wutong realm, and ascending to the vast wilderness. These three possibilities are the most likely. Of course, there's also a very small possibility that you'll ascend to another realm. Dai Yu said, if you can ascend to the vast wilderness, there's a high chance that you'll see me. Su Zimo nodded as if he understood something. The dragon phoenix's true body had the bloodline of dragons. Therefore, it was possible for it to ascend to the dragon realm. The Wutong realm that Dai Yu mentioned should be the realm where the divine phoenixes and divine phoenixes resided. In the ancient books, there were some legends and records that the divine phoenixes and divine phoenixes would not perch unless it was a Wutong realm. The dragon phoenix also had the bloodline of the divine phoenix, so it could also ascend to the Wutong realm. Dragon phoenixes were also considered a type of demon, so it could also ascend to the vast wilderness. Dai Yu's gaze turned and landed on Qinglian's true body in the Kunlun ruins. As for your Qinglian body, it's possible for it to ascend to the heavenly realm. Heavenly realm? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Dai Yu nodded. You're right. There's a high chance that the humans of the hundreds of millions of minor thousand aristocratic families will ascend to the heavenly realm. The human emperor that you mentioned just now should be someone from the heavenly realm. Su Zimo nodded. Chapter 1747. In Su Zimo's heart, Dai Yu was an almost invincible existence. But now, Dai Yu said it herself that given her cultivation, she could not dominate more than 50% of the upper realm. Even before ascending, the vastness and mystery of the upper realm had already given Su Zimo a huge shock. Dai Yu said, right now, you're invincible in this mainland without any opponents. However, if you were to ascend to the upper realm, you'll be at the bottom of the hierarchy. Su Zimo nodded. Senior Human Emperor once told me that there are countless paragons in the upper realm. Those who can ascend are all top-notch experts in the lower realm. It's not just those who ascended from the lower realm, Dai Yu said. In the upper realm, there are many paragons who were born there. Their starting point is higher than the living beings of the lower realm the moment they were born. Suddenly, Su Zimo thought of something and asked, just now, what are the cultivation realms of the 7 witches who descended from the upper realm? They're just a few mystic witches. Dai Yu shook her head slightly. Mystic witches are considered the lowest living beings in the witch world of the upper realm. However, even the lowest living beings of the upper realm can suppress me with ease. Su Zimo smiled bitterly and shook his head. The supreme divine powers that I've comprehended can't even defend against the lesser divine powers of mystic witches. Dai Yu pondered for a moment and said, there's no harm in telling you some things now. In the upper realm, you'll have to experience the 3 major realms first. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he listened intently. He did not want to miss out on any information about the upper realm. After all, the more he knew, the more likely he would be able to gain a foothold after ascending to the upper realm. Furthermore, he had cultivated to his current realm and knew nothing about his future path. Dai Yu said, the 3 major realms are Mystic Aeon, Earthly Aeon, and Heavenly Aeon. Mystic Aeon witches are usually called mystic witches. Mystic Aeon immortal cultivators are called mystic immortals, and so on. Of course, the civilizations of the 3,000 sectors are different. The names may be different, but the corresponding levels will not change. Su Zimo nodded and asked, why are these 3 stages called Mystic, Earth, and Heaven? Is there anything special about them? Dai Yu did not answer, but asked instead, Xian Di Tian, according to this order, do you think of anything? Xian Di Tian? Su Zimo thought for a while and his eyes lit up. He blurted out, Heaven, Earth, Black and Yellow? Not bad. Dai Yu nodded. I got it. Su Zimo said, heaven, earth, Xian and Huang. In fact, this Huang corresponds to the emperor of the millions of families. Dai Yu nodded slightly as a look of admiration flashed across her eyes. As for the Yun, in mystic, earth and heaven primordial, it represents the source of power in the upper realm, heaven and earth primordial qi. Heaven and earth primordial qi is similar to the spirit qi in a small world. However, it is countless times stronger than spirit qi. Just now, you said that a minor divine power of the mystic sorcerer was able to defeat your supreme divine power because his minor divine power was infused with heaven and earth primordial qi. No wonder. Su Zimo was enlightened and lamented, to think that infusing heaven and earth primordial qi would cause a divine power to transform to such an extent. Dai Yu said, the so-called divine power was originally passed down from the upper realm. The true power of the divine power can only be unleashed when it is infused with heaven and earth primordial qi. After pondering for a while, Su Zimo asked again, does that mean that if I can control heaven and earth primordial qi, I can release divine powers at will? Of course not. Dai Yu shook her head. Typically, mystic primordial cultivators can only release minor divine powers. Earth primordial cultivators can only release major divine powers. Only heavenly primordial cultivators can release supreme divine powers. Firstly, the amount of heaven and earth primordial qi required to release major or supreme divine powers is massive. If one's cultivation realm isn't high enough, they won't be able to activate it at all. Secondly, if one's cultivation realm isn't high enough, their physical body and essence spirit won't be able to withstand the burden of releasing major or supreme divine powers. Su Zimo memorized all of that in his mind and tried his best to absorb and understand it. Dai Yu said, you have to set your sights wider and look further into the future. In the upper realm, not only will there be divine powers, there will also be countless treasures and secret skills, many of which I've never seen before. Not only will there be supreme divine powers in the upper realm, there are also a few taboo secret manuals. If you can obtain one of them, it'll be enough for you to use for the rest of your life. Supreme divine powers. The first time he heard those words was from the old storyteller. However, the old storyteller had also said that it was merely a legend and he had never seen it before. Now, he knew from Dai Yu that supreme divine powers did exist. Furthermore, they were in the upper realm. However, even a divine origin powerhouse could only release supreme divine powers. What kind of power would one have to possess to release supreme divine powers? Dai Yu seemed to have read Su Zimo's mind and said, after the divine origin realm, there are naturally higher realms. However, that's too far away from you. Just the mystic, earth and divine origin realms alone have 9 grades each. There's a huge gap between each grade. The gap between the 3 primordial realms is even greater. Su Zimo asked, Miss Dai, is your cultivation realm above the divine origin realm? Of course. Dai Yu nodded and said, the human emperor you're talking about is also above the divine origin realm. Su Zimo sighed in his heart. He had thought that after ascending to the upper realm, he would be able to catch up to Dai Yu's footsteps very quickly. He had not expected that there would be such a huge gap between him and Dai Yu. Dai Yu had used a secret technique to isolate their conversation. No one else could hear it either. Dai Yu's gaze landed on Qinglian's real body. After a while, she said, it's rare that you've grown to the peak of rank 8. Yes, it's a pity that you've yet to break through and reach rank 9. Su Zimo said. Qinglian's real body had been at the peak of rank 8 for some time now. Even though Qinglian's real body had comprehended 3 supreme divine powers, she had yet to break through the boundary of rank 8. She seemed to have reached a bottleneck. Creation Qinglian is the only one in heaven and earth. I don't know how she's going to grow. Dai Yu said, however, rank 9 Creation Qinglian is definitely not the limit. The true peak is rank 12. Moreover, the next 4 ranks of Qinglian's creation will give birth to even greater creations. The potential of this clone is definitely not weaker than your Dragon Phoenix body. Perhaps, it might even surpass the Dragon Phoenix. Dai Yu had a very high opinion of Qinglian's real body. Su Zimo had countless words that he wanted to say to Daiyu. However, right then, Daiyu suddenly raised her head and looked at the crack in the firmaments, saying softly, "It's here." The moment she said that, an oppressive aura surged into Tianhuang mainland through the crack. A green river hovered above the firmaments, emitting a rich evil aura. Every single drop of water in the river contained an extremely terrifying power that could kill any emperor in Tianhuang mainland. Genius 1 second. Remember this site address. Mobile version reading website. Chapter 1748. The green river spanned above the firmaments and 4 figures could be vaguely seen in the river, exuding a powerful aura that dominated the world. Su Zimo raised his head and looked over. Given his cultivation realm, it was only natural that he could not detect the cultivation realms of those figures. However, he could sense that those 4 figures were clearly much stronger than the 7 upper world witches from before. I'd like to see who dares to hurt someone from the witch world in this tiny place of the lower world. A voice rumbled from the green river, bringing with it an immense might that was sinister and terrifying. The 4 experts from the witch world merely appeared faintly in the green river without revealing themselves. However, their spirit consciousnesses were patrolling the entire Tianhuang mainland without restraint. Damn it! The witches here have been annihilated. Before long, the 4 experts from the witch world discovered the gigantic blood-colored palm print in the ancestral ground of the witches. A few ghostly green gazes shot out from the green river above the firmaments towards Daiyu and Su Zimo, who were standing on the blood-colored palm print. The light from their gazes arrived almost instantly. Daiyu moved gracefully and shielded Su Zimo behind her. Her expression was indifferent and she did not move at all. Before the few rays of green light landed on Daiyu's body, they had already dissipated into nothingness. "Oh!" A surprised voice sounded from the green river. "Woman, you've got some tricks up your sleeves." Another voice sounded and asked coldly, "Who are you? Where are you from in the upper world?" Daiyu raised her head slightly and replied indifferently, "You're just a few earth witches. You're not worthy of knowing my background." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. According to what Daiyu had said just now, earth witches should be experts of earth essence realm. They were indeed a major cultivation realm higher than the 7 upper world witches from before. "How dare you?" An earth witch hollered, "Stop trying to act mysterious over there. No matter how strong you are, what you've manifested in the lower world is merely a phenomenon." The earth witch was indeed sharp to be able to see through Daiyu's facade with a single glance. Daiyu said, "Just one phenomenon is enough to deal with you." As soon as she finished speaking, Daiyu directly attacked. Her white palm seemed to pass through the endless void and came to the green river at the end of the firmament. She gently patted it. "You're courting death." When the 4 earth wizards saw this, they activated their primordial spirits one after another. The green river stirred up a huge wave and swallowed Daiyu's palm. This green river was condensed from the elemental energy in their bodies. It contained an extremely strong corrosive power and was also mixed with an evil curse. Not to mention a body of flesh and blood, even a divine weapon from the upper realm would not be able to withstand the power of the green river. "Acting all mysterious, get down here," Daiyu scolded. Daiyu's palm emitted rays of godly light as it landed directly on the green river. The green river's water was sinister and viscous, but not a single drop touched Daiyu's palm. Boom! A loud sound rang out. The green river that spanned across the sky seemed to be frozen in an instant. Following a loud explosion, it was shattered into pieces by Daiyu's palm. The green river turned into dark green rain and fell from the skies, almost engulfing the entire Tianhuang mainland. In the skies above Penglai Island, an emperor of the Golden Crow race was initially in his true form and stood above the clouds. He did not expect the dark green rain to fall from the skies. A drop of rain landed on his body. It was only a single drop. This drop of rainwater had corroded a bloody hole in his body. Immediately after, the terrifying power contained in the drop of rain devoured his Golden Crow body in the blink of an eye. The moment the essence spirit of the Golden Crow race's emperor escaped, It was penetrated by another drop of rain and died on the spot. When they saw that, the expressions of the yellow crows, Long Ran and the others changed starkly. The Green River was shattered by Dai Yu and its power was mostly dissipated. However, the remnant power was still so terrifying in the form of rain. Even an emperor could not defend against it. None of the living beings in Tianhuang mainland could survive this torrential rain. With a calm expression, Dai Yu rubbed her jade-like fingers gently and a small flame appeared on her fingertips. The flame danced on Dai Yu's fingertips and flickered, as though a gust of wind could extinguish it. However, after the flame appeared, the dark green rain was incinerated before it could land on Tianhuang mainland, turning into the richest spirit qi that fused into Tianhuang mainland. As for the 4 Earth Magi, they were forced to reveal themselves by Dai Yu's palm strike and looked wretched. Kill. The 4 Earth Magi hollered and attacked one after another. One of the Earth Wizards slapped his storage bag, and a dark green skull as large as a mountain appeared from within. The skull opened its mouth as though it wanted to devour the entire world. Thick dark green yuan qi constantly gushed out from the skull's eye sockets and mouth. Its aura was monstrous and blotted out the sun. 9 Neonate Curse. Another Earth Magi channeled his essence spirit and released a great divine power. Even the living beings of Tianhuang mainland had not seen the 9 Neonate Curse before. The 9 Neonate Curse was extremely vicious. In order to cultivate this great divine power, one had to use a secret skill to refine a living infant. For a total of 49 days, one had to refine the infant continuously with a secret skill and maintain its vitality to ensure that it did not die. Eventually, the infant would die in agony. The infant's soul would be filled with endless resentment and would be imprisoned by the witch race to cultivate this great divine power. Suddenly, 9 vengeful infants appeared in midair after the great divine ability was formed. They had tragic expressions and wailed. The 9 vengeful infants split into different directions and lunged towards Dai Yu. The 3rd Earth Magi waved his bone staff and drew a semicircle before him. In the semicircle, many crooked incantations appeared and enveloped Dai Yu like dark green spirit snakes. The 4th Earth Magi's bone staff tapped on the ground. Immediately after, dark green flowers appeared beneath Dai Yu's feet and grabbed towards Dai Yu's ankle like the palm of an evil spirit. The 4 Earth Magi attacked at the same time without holding back. Although many experts of Tianhuang mainland had stayed out of the matter, Tianhuang mainland was not involved. Instead, there was a hint of pleading in their eyes. The 9 babies hugged each other and bowed towards Dai Yu repeatedly. Although they looked clumsy, they were extremely pitiful. Although they were condensed from the power of divine powers, they could sense that the blood-robed woman before them could grant them true freedom. Disperse, Dai Yu said softly. The colors of the 9 babies began to change, turning from a dark green to a healthy shade of pink. A look of relief flashed through the eyes of the 9 babies. Before long, the 9 babies dissipated into nothingness in the world. In fact, Dai Yu did not even attack. She merely said 3 words and dispelled the great divine power. Not only that, Dai Yu even severed the source of power of the great divine power this time round. The Earth Wizard would never be able to condense this divine power again. The Earth Wizard's face was ashen and filled with fear. He also realized that the blood-robed woman before him was not someone he could fight against. In a flash, he turned and fled towards the crack in the heavens. Cultivating such a vicious divine power will result in karma. Today will be your calamity of death. Dai Yu said and extended her hand, gripping gently across the void. Exclamation point. Before the Earth Wizard could escape into the crack, he turned into a mist of blood and died on the spot. The 4 experts of the witch world who came down were all dead. Dai Yu waved her hand and collected the storage bags of the 7 mystic witches and the 4 Earth Wizards from before. Dai Yu exerted some strength in her palm and the storage bags shattered, revealing the items within. Without even looking at them, Dai Yu handed them to Su Zimo and said, "Keep these items." Under normal circumstances, even though the witches of the upper realm had fallen, their spirit consciousness imprints would still be left on their storage bags. Given Su Zimo's strength, there was no way he could open them. Dai Yu did not erase any spirit consciousness imprints and simply shattered the storage bags. What are these? Su Zimo took them over with a confused look in his eyes. There were many items in the storage bags of the upper realm witches. There were elixirs, weapons, and all sorts of materials. However, Su Zimo did not recognize most of these items. In fact, he had never seen many of the materials before. Dai Yu scanned them casually and said, "These witches are extremely poor and don't have anything good. Most of these items belong to the witches and won't be of much use to you. Take care of those bottles of elixirs." Dai Yu pointed to a few bottles and said, "These are essence condensation elixirs. In the upper realm, mystic essence cultivators take them most commonly. Not only does the essence condensation elixir nurture heaven and earth yuan qi, it can also help cultivators absorb heaven and earth yuan qi better after consumption." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he asked, "If I were to consume the essence condensation elixir to cultivate now, would I be able to control heaven and earth yuan qi?" "Of course not." Dai Yu shook her head. "You haven't transcended the tribulation yet. You can only attempt to absorb heaven and earth yuan qi after transcending the heavenly tribulation with your flesh and essence spirit. Even though you have the body of a dragon and phoenix now, if you consume the essence condensation elixir, you won't be able to withstand the power of the elixir and will explode on the spot." Su Zimo was secretly speechless. In the upper realm, even the most ordinary elixir possessed such terrifying power. Reading website M. Chapter 1750. Taking another look, Dai Yu pointed to the 7 stones that were the size of a baby's fist. Those are essence spirit stones. They contain rich heaven and earth essence qi and are extremely important cultivation resources. Their value is far above those essence formation elixirs. Given my current cultivation, I can't absorb the heaven and earth essence qi within, right? Su Zimo asked. Dai Yu shook her head gently. Even if you transcend the tribulation and become a mystic essence cultivator, you won't be able to absorb the heaven and earth essence qi within, let alone your current cultivation realm. This elemental spirit stone can only be absorbed by earthly yuan cultivators. If mystic essence cultivators want to absorb the heaven and earth essence qi within, they have to cultivate a few forbidden secret manuals of the upper world. Forbidden secret manuals? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He had heard Dai Yu mention that term earlier on, and a hint of curiosity flashed through his eyes. Forbidden secret manuals are on par with a few supreme divine powers. Those are too far away for you and there's no point in telling you. Dai Yu did not continue. Su Zimo nodded and did not probe further. He merely kept the bottles of essence formation elixirs and the 7 essence spirit stones in a storage bag carefully. Dai Yu was about to speak when she suddenly frowned and looked up. Boom! There was a deafening sound. Suddenly, a gigantic foot descended from the crack in the firmaments. Its thick thigh resembled a divine pillar that connected the heavens. The gigantic foot carried with it an apocalyptic aura and formed a massive shadow that descended from the skies, stomping heavily on East Sea. Instantly, a series of tsunamis surged in East Sea and swept in all directions. Instantly, countless living beings in East Sea were trampled to death by that single stomp. The living beings of the 10,000 races were shocked. Gigantic waves surged in the bottomless East Sea. However, the gigantic waves that were dozens of feet tall could not even reach the ankles of that living being. The experts of Tianhuang mainland were pale as they raised their heads one after another and looked over. The experts of Tianhuang mainland could not see the full appearance of that living being even at the limits of their vision. To be precise, that living being's thigh had already pierced through the entire heaven and earth of Tianhuang mainland. You're still not done? Dai Yu's expression turned cold as she waved her sleeves and flung it towards that thigh that pierced through heaven and earth. Her scarlet sleeves seemed to have transformed into a blood-colored saber that sliced through the thigh. Dai Yu's sleeves had sliced this heavenly thigh into 2. Blood gushed out and dyed the East Sea red. The lower half of his thigh fell heavily into the East Sea, creating waves of blood. Roar! A pained and furious roar came from the sky. Boom! Immediately after, a huge palm descended from the sky, covering the sky and grabbing towards Dai Yu. It was as if the giant hand had loomed over the entire middle continent. All the living beings of the myriad races were horrified. They had never seen such a huge creature before. A palm blotted out the sky and enveloped the central continent. 1 foot was enough to flatten the East Sea. Most importantly, up until now, the beings of the myriad races had yet to see the full appearance of this living being. They had no idea what kind of living being this was. Dai Yu's expression did not change. Looking at the hand that was grabbing towards her, she retaliated with a punch. Dai Yu's fist was like a speck of dust compared to this enormous hand. However, this punch directly shattered the palm into pieces. The roars in the firmaments turned more hurried. The consecutive severe injuries had already caused this living being to fall into a berserk rage. All of a sudden, the skies darkened. A huge shadow descended slowly and a gigantic eyeball appeared in the middle of the shadow. It was ferocious and filled with endless rage and killing intent. All the living beings of the myriad races had never seen such a gigantic eye. That eye was comparable to the stars in the firmaments and emanated a powerful might. An image flashed through the minds of all the living beings of the myriad races. A living being that resembled a gigantic god stepped into Tianhuang mainland with 1 foot and reached in with 1 hand. After being severely injured, he lowered his body, wanting to see what was going on. That shadow was the face of that living being. On the face of that living being, there was no nose, ears, or mouth. There was only a single gigantic eye. Humph! Dai Yu harumphed softly and raised her hand to point gently at the single eye in the firmaments. That jade-like finger tore through the air like a sharp sword and entered the single eye. Exclamation point! The single eye was blinded by Dai Yu's finger. Ah! The living being howled tragically and let out a tragic roar. His voice grew further and further. It was clear that he had already escaped from Tianhuang mainland. All of a sudden, a gigantic ancient bell descended from the firmaments. The surface of the ancient bell was filled with runes. It was ancient and mysterious and exuded a powerful aura with a terrifying might. Even the single-eyed living being earlier on could not compare to the aura of the ancient bell. Dai Yu waved her sleeves and slapped the ancient bell viciously. Clang! When Dai Yu's sleeves hit the ancient bell, a loud chime echoed from afar. Cracks appeared in the sky of infinite desolation because of the sound of the bell. They were densely packed. The ancient bell did not retreat. Instead, it enveloped Dai Yu's head, as though it wanted to fight with her. Dai Yu's eyes shone brightly as she reached out and slapped the ancient bell. Dong! The ancient bell shuddered and let out a sound. Immediately after, the runes on the ancient bell shone with a bedazzling divine light and enveloped Dai Yu's palm. By the looks of it, the ancient bell wanted to fight against Dai Yu. The moment the runes collided with Dai Yu's palm, they shattered. They could not defend against her power at all. Boom! In the blink of an eye, Dai Yu's palm shattered many of the runes and landed heavily on the ancient bell. Su Zimo could clearly see that there was a huge crater on the ancient bell and Dai Yu's palm print was clearly imprinted on it. Buzz! Buzz! As though it had a mind of its own, the ancient bell let out a series of sorrowful cries. All of a sudden, above this ancient bell, an extremely vast power burst forth. Brilliance spread out, forming a halo of light. Light swirled on the surface of the ancient bell. He saw that the palm print on the ancient bell was gradually recovering. Since you don't dare to reveal your true body, you used a spiritual immortal weapon to test it out. I think you don't want your spiritual immortal weapon anymore. Dai Yu's expression was cold as she leaped up and left Su Zimo's side, charging towards the ancient bell. This was the first time Dai Yu had left Su Zimo's side since the start of the battle. It was clear that she was prepared to give it her all to keep the ancient bell. The ancient bell seemed to have sensed danger and did not dare to linger. It turned into a streak of light and fled towards the crack in the firmaments. Dai Yu was about to give chase when her expression changed. Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 1751. Suddenly, A figure floated down from the crack in the skies. That person's black hair scattered and he wore white robes. He looked handsome and his eyes were like stars. With his hands behind his back, he was as elegant as an immortal. He seemed to be a human from the upper world. The white-robed man stood in midair and swept his gaze across Tianhuang mainland. He muttered softly, "This small world is not bad. Thousands of races coexist. There's actually a god?" The white-robed man's gaze suddenly landed on the dragon phoenix's true body. He sniffed and his eyes lit up. The aura of a dragon phoenix. Ha. The white-robed man laughed. Not bad, not bad. I can capture this deity Ho and dragon phoenix and make them my celestial pets. However, I still have to find the creation Qinglian first. Where is she? The white-robed man scanned his surroundings. In a few breaths, the white-robed man's gaze landed on Kunlun ruins and Qinglian's true body. Su Zimo felt a chill run down his spine and his hair stood on end. So, she's hiding here. The white-robed man clicked his tongue in wonder. To think that she would fuse so well with flesh. How rare. Under the white-robed man's gaze, Su Zimo felt as though he was seen through from head to toe as though there were no secrets. Su Zimo was secretly shocked. Be it the witch race, the one-eyed living being or the ancient bell, none of the experts from the upper world could find Qinglian's true body. However, this white-robed man was able to find her immediately. Although he did not know the cultivation realm of the white-robed man, this person was definitely more terrifying than all the experts from the upper world. The white-robed man's gaze landed on Nian Qi again, and his eyes lit up. Not bad, this Protoss woman is not bad. I can bring her back. Swoosh. The white-robed man's figure flashed, and he arrived above Kunlun ruins in the blink of an eye. The white-robed man looked at Su Zimo and said, I happen to lack the creation to refine an immortal pill. Qinglian, after I refine you, the immortal pill will definitely be refined. To be able to become this king's alchemy material, your death can be considered worthy. The white-shirt man said proudly. He stretched out his palm and grabbed at Su Zimo. A blood-red figure suddenly flashed in front of Su Zimo. You're courting death. A cold glint flashed across the white-robed man's eyes as he unleashed a terrifying force from his palm towards Dai Yu. Dai Yu's expression didn't change as she casually struck out with a backhand palm. Bang! The two individuals exchanged blows, colliding once. They immediately separated upon contact, releasing a loud sound. The white-robed man shuddered and his expression changed slightly. Su Zimo was also secretly shocked. Up till this point of the battle, the white-robed man was the only one who could withstand Dai Yu's attack without being injured. Not only that, the white-robed man didn't even take half a step back. Su Zimo could not help but feel worried. However, Dai Yu's expression was calm and her eyes were indifferent as she glared at the white-robed man coldly. For you? The white-robed man narrowed his eyes and asked sternly. Get lost. Dai Yu did not say anything else. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Given Dai Yu's personality, she was decisive to kill. Under normal circumstances, she wouldn't waste her breath on the white-robed man, nor would she allow him to leave. However, she seemed to have reservations right now. Could this white-robed man be so strong that he could threaten Dai Yu? You're merely a bloodline phenomenon. How strong can you be? The white-robed man smirked and saw through Dai Yu's facade with a single glance. Dai Yu replied indifferently, You're merely a clone as well. That's the difference. The white-robed man declared proudly, This clone of mine has its own essence spirit and was condensed after cultivating for hundreds of thousands of years. It's not something that your bloodline phenomenon can compare to. I'm going to take the creation of this small world, Qinglian. The white-robed man declared coldly, I'll kill anyone who dares to stop me today. Even if your true body descends, I'll kill you all the same. Before he finished his sentence, a bedazzling light shone from the white-robed man's glabella. Su Zimo, Nian Qi and the others could not help but grunt under the immense pressure of the light. The light was even more blinding than the blazing sun in the firmaments and possessed an incomparably terrifying might. His clone has cultivated to this realm? Dai Yu narrowed her eyes slightly. It's too late for regrets now. The white-robed man hollered deeply, and the light from his glabella released an extremely terrifying power that surged into his hands. That terrifying power formed a gigantic sword in the white-robed man's palms rapidly. Although the sword was not a true weapon, it was countless times stronger than the ancient bell just now. Slay! The white-robed man raised his sword and slashed towards Dai Yu. You want to kill me? Dai Yu's gaze turned cold. Seems like you don't know who I am at all. Before she finished her sentence, Dai Yu's figure vanished suddenly. A blood-colored butterfly that was about 10 feet large appeared in midair. 2 full moons were imprinted on the wings of the blood-colored butterfly, glaring coldly at the white-robed man like a pair of eyes. Su Zimo held his breath. Prior to this, Dai Yu had never transformed into her true form. She merely attacked casually and suppressed all the experts of the upper world. But now, she had transformed into her true form against this white-robed man. Fu, the white-robed man sneered, only the golden emperor butterfly of the butterfly race has some strength. As for your red butterfly, the white-robed man seemed to have thought of something and could not continue. Why? The blood drained from the white-robed man's face as his eyes widened. His arms were trembling slightly as he pointed at Dai Yu. Why, you're the blood butterfly of the vast wilderness. The moment he said that, the white-robed man turned and fled without hesitation. Dai Yu's wings flapped. The tremor was almost negligible. However, the white-robed man's body suddenly trembled violently. A series of gigantic cracks appeared on the sword that he had just conjured between his hands. Crack, crack, boom. There was a deafening sound. The dazzling longsword shattered with a loud bang. The white-robed man spat out blood with a horrified expression and wanted to continue fleeing. However, Dai Yu's wings flapped once more. This time round, it was as though a terrifying hurricane had been conjured in midair, descending upon the white-robed man instantly. Chapter 1752. The white-robed man begged for mercy, but Dai Yu ignored him with an indifferent expression. Since she had already attacked and incurred a huge grudge, there was no way she was going to let him leave. Dai Yu transformed into her human form once more and entered the terrifying storm with light steps. The storm tore at the flesh of the white-robed man furiously. Within a few breaths, the white-robed man was reduced to a skeleton by the storm. However, there was still a strong life force within the white-robed man's body that fought against the storm around him. Su Zimo focused his gaze. Through the layers of storm, he could vaguely make out a ball of light the size of a goose egg within the white-robed man's skull. It was bedazzling. Even in the terrifying storm, the ball of light was not extinguished and shone with divine light that entered the white-robed man's bones to maintain his life force. If not for that, the white-robed man would have been torn to shreds by the storm long ago. Dai Yu leaped into the storm and extended her palm, landing it on the white-robed man's head. Dai Yu exerted strength in her palm and her fair, tender fingers pierced into the white-robed man's skull. Snap! With a chilling sound, Dai Yu reached out and plucked the white-robed man's head off. Ah! The white-robed man let out a tragic cry once more. Dai Yu ignored him and had a calm expression. Her fair palm reached into the white-robed man's head and she grabbed the bedazzling ball of light in her palm before retrieving it. Why, you ruined my cultivation. The white-robed man could not finish his sentence. It was as though Dai Yu's retrieving of the bedazzling ball of light was equivalent to severing the source of the white-robed man's strength. In the blink of an eye, his body and bones were destroyed by the violent storm and he was smashed into pieces. Dai Yu waved her sleeves gently and the storm dissipated. The world returned to normal once more, as though everything that happened just now was just an illusion. Dai Yu removed the white-robed man's storage bag and shattered it. A large number of items spilled out from the storage bag. Elixirs, cultivation techniques, weapons, everything was there. There were even more items than the mystic and earth magi just now combined. Although Su Zimo did not recognize any of the items, he could tell that the items in the white-robed man's storage bag were obviously much better. More importantly, there were more than 10,000 of the elemental spirit stones that Dai Yu had mentioned. At this moment, Su Zimo was still unaware of how precious elemental spirit stones were in the upper realm. Elemental spirit stone was not only a cultivation resource in the upper realm, but it was also a hard currency that circulated in the upper realm. After all, the mystic immortals of the upper realm were unable to absorb the spirit weapons within the elemental spirit ores, and they had almost no elemental spirit ores. Tens of thousands of elemental spirit stones was a considerable sum even among the earthly immortals. This time, without waiting for Dai Yu's instructions, Su Zimo stored all the elemental spirit stones in a storage bag for safekeeping. Dai Yu held the ball of blazing light in her hand. She exerted some strength in her palm, and the ball of light quickly dimmed. In the blink of an eye, there was only a round jade stone the size of a goose egg left in her palm. It looked very ordinary. On this round jade stone, there were even a few faint lines of patterns. Dai Yu came before Su Zimo and handed the jade stone the size of a goose egg to Su Zimo, saying indifferently, "This is that person's Dao fruit. It contains that person's Dao technique." Su Zimo was about to receive it when his heart skipped a beat when he heard that. He suddenly thought of Wu Dao's true body. Wu Dao's true body was formed from Wu Dao's Dao fruit. However, the process of formation of Wu Dao's Dao fruit was extremely unique. That was because he had created Wu Dao and obtained the support of a grand wish. He condensed the mysteries of Wu Dao, contained the will of Wu Dao and fused it with the faith of all living beings. That was how a Dao fruit of Wu Dao was formed. The Dao fruit in Dai Yu's palm was clearly different from his Wu Dao fruit. Dai Yu thought that Su Zimo was worried about something and said, "I've already sealed the power of this Dao fruit and it's of no threat to you. Of course, given your current cultivation, you're far from being able to reach that level. You can keep it for the time being. Once you reach a certain cultivation realm, this Dao fruit might be of use to you." Although Dai Yu said it casually, Su Zimo could tell that the value of this Dao fruit was clearly much greater than spirit essence stones. "Miss Dai, please accept this Dao fruit," Su Zimo said. "Why should I take it?" Dai Yu smirked and shook her head. "Although this is precious, it's nothing to me. I'll just throw it away casually if I keep it." With that said, Dai Yu tossed it casually. Su Zimo hurried forward to catch it and placed it on a storage bag by itself. "What's that person's cultivation realm in the upper world?" Su Zimo could not help but ask. "His true body should be similar to the human emperor you mentioned," Dai Yu said indifferently. Pausing for a moment, Dai Yu continued, "He's someone from the heavenly realm. Given his cultivation realm, he has a high status in the heavenly realm and can be conferred as a king. It's not easy for his clone to cultivate to this realm and condense a Dao fruit. Now that I've destroyed his clone, I've sowed a huge grudge with him. Naturally, he won't dare to seek revenge from me. However, if you ascend to the heavenly realm, you must be careful. Of course, if you can ascend to the vast wilderness, you naturally won't have to worry about him. I'll protect you." Suddenly, Su Zimo recalled something. When Dai Yu saw that person, she did not attack immediately and instead asked him to scram. Unfortunately, the white-robed man did not recognize Dai Yu's background at that time and wanted to kill her. That was how he ended up. At that time, Su Zimo thought that this person had a powerful background such that even Dai Yu was wary of him. But now, he finally understood that Dai Yu was worried about him. At the same time, Su Zimo lamented. Initially, he thought that he was already an unprecedented monster incarnate by cultivating the two true bodies of Qinglian and Dragon Phoenix. To think that just now, the white-robed man had a clone as well that was similar to his two true bodies. In fact, the white-robed man's clone was even stronger and more terrifying. Thankfully, he still had Wu Dao's true body. Wu Dao's true body that even Dai Yu could not detect. Su Zimo still had countless questions that he wanted to ask and confide in. However, Dai Yu shook her head at that moment. "Let's wait a moment." Dai Yu looked at the crack in the firmaments. "If this crack isn't repaired, I'm afraid even more living beings of the upper world will descend. My phenomenon is about to dissipate. I'd better mend this crack first." With that said, Dai Yu leaped and flew into the firmaments. It was only then that Su Zimo realized that Dai Yu's figure seemed to have turned slightly illusory after this battle and was no longer as corporeal as before. After all, the Dai Yu before him was only condensed from his bloodline phenomenon and could not even be considered as a clone of Dai Yu. The continuous battle had taken a huge toll on his bloodline phenomenon. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 1753. Right in front of the living beings of the 10,000 races, Dai Yu stood above the firmaments and waved her hands, releasing streams of divine light that scattered onto the crack. As though it was pulled by an invisible force, the crack closed slowly like a miracle. Dai Yu nourishing heavens. It was an extremely shocking scene. The storyteller Old Man, Long Ran, and the emperors of the human race revealed deep admiration as they bowed and bowed towards the blood-colored figure in the firmaments. Everyone knew that as long as the crack was still around, the living beings of Tianhuang mainland could be met with misfortune at any moment and a calamity would befall them. Dai Yu's actions were equivalent to saving the entire Tianhuang mainland. As long as heaven and earth were repaired and the laws were complete, it would be too difficult for anyone from the upper realm to descend. Firstly, someone from the lower realm had to release a secret skill to summon. Now that the witch race was destroyed, apart from the storyteller Old Man, no one else knew of such a secret skill. Secondly, even if someone summoned, someone from the upper realm had to possess an extremely powerful cultivation to descend. At the very least, they had to be on par with the ancient human emperor. More importantly, even if the ancient human emperor were to descend, he would suffer an immense backlash and his body would collapse. His essence spirit would be severely injured and his cultivation realm would drop. Even now, he had not been able to re-establish contact with the human emperor's palace. Who else would be like the ancient human emperor who was willing to make such a huge sacrifice to save the living beings of Tianhuang mainland? There was only one ancient human emperor. The entire process of mending the heavens lasted for a long time and took a huge toll on Dai Yu as well. Su Zimo could clearly see Dai Yu's figure turning dimmer and more illusory, as though she could dissipate and disappear from Tianhuang mainland at any moment. Su Zimo remained silent and stared fixedly at the blood-colored figure. Unconsciously, he clenched his fists nervously. He still had many things to tell Dai Yu. He was worried that Dai Yu would leave without bidding farewell to him. After a long time, the crack in the firmaments finally closed completely without any gaps. Heaven and earth were repaired and the laws were perfected. Tianhuang mainland returned to normal. The living beings of the 10,000 races cheered with joyous expressions. Just now, the scene of the experts of the upper realm descending was too much of a shock for them. It was like a nightmare that they did not dare to recall even now. Nobody wanted Tianhuang mainland to experience a calamity like that once more. Su Zimo did not smile. Although Dai Yu was still around, her figure was extremely blurry and could dissipate at any moment. Dai Yu walked toward Su Zimo. However, after taking a few steps, her body swayed and she was on the verge of breaking down. Dai Yu stopped in her tracks. Even though Su Zimo knew that the Dai Yu before him was merely a bloodline phenomenon, he still felt a sense of reluctance in his heart and wanted to welcome it. Dai Yu shook her head and said, "There's no need to come over. I'll just talk to you. Actually, your current cultivation is already sufficient. Don't stay in the lower realm for too long. It's best if you ascend as soon as possible. Of the heavens, heaven of the upper realm of the world of the Tianhuang mainland of the heaven of the world of the world of the world of the world of the world. In the lower realm, Su Zimo was a martial emperor who could call the wind and summon the rain. In the upper realm, however, he could only be reduced to the lowest rung of society. It was difficult for anyone to accept such a huge difference. Dai Yu said, "Back then, I brought you on the path of cultivation because I wanted to resolve the karma between us. I didn't expect that you would be able to cultivate to this point. However, since you've come this far, I hope that you can adapt to the environment of the upper realm and work hard to survive." Su Zimo could hear the concern and worry in Dai Yu's tone. Dai Yu said, "The upper realm is a gigantic forest that's even crueler and bloodier. You have to remember that even I nearly died back then. Back then, Dai Yu was severely injured and came to Tianhuang mainland to meet Su Zimo. Dai Yu was so strong. What sort of expert could injure her so severely? Su Zimo did not say anything. Right now, even if he wanted to help, he was powerless. However, in his heart, he was determined to cultivate as soon as possible after ascending to the upper realms so that he could catch up to Dai Yu. The next time they met, Su Zimo believed that he would give Dai Yu an even greater surprise. It's time for me to leave. Dai Yu sighed gently and shifted her gaze away from Su Zimo to survey the entire Tianhuang mainland. Dai Yu was somewhat reluctant to leave this small kiliacosm as well. Dai Yu's gaze paused for a moment in Pingyang town before shifting to Zhonglang mountain range and the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley. Suddenly, Dai Yu exclaimed softly and her eyes lit up. She saw the 4 lines of words on the walls of the old temple at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley. She had left behind the first 2 lines many years ago. If you wish to be a dragon or elephant, you must first be a horse or ox for all living beings. Behind the first 2 lines of words, there were 2 more lines of words that were similarly sharp and looked down on the world. Once the dust clears, light shines through the mountains and rivers. Good, good, good. Dai Yu's eyes shone brightly as she nodded repeatedly. She could not help but laugh and praise, "What a bold spirit. You're not weaker than me." Dai Yu looked at Su Zimo once more. "I'll be waiting for you in the upper world. I hope that you can shine through the mountains and rivers of the upper world and meet me again." With that said, Dai Yu's figure dissipated completely and vanished from the world. Su Zimo and Dai Yu finally met after much difficulty, but they did not manage to speak much. The 2 of them spent less than half a day together. He had many things on his mind that he had yet to tell Dai Yu. Su Zimo looked in that direction and sighed gently, feeling lost. "Young master, don't be disappointed. That senior said that you can ascend right now and you'll be able to see her then." Nian Qi consoled with a gentle expression at the side. "I'm fine." Su Zimo nodded to Nian Qi and smiled as well. As Nian Qi had said, the matters in Tianhuang mainland had basically come to an end. At that time, he could ascend and leave for the upper world. If he was lucky, he might be able to ascend to the vast wilderness right away. The dust had settled on the war initiated by the primordial 5 races. The witch race was destroyed and the Protoss was imprisoned by Nian Qi to be brought back to God's mainland. Of the original primordial 9 races, only 7 were left. Among the 7 races, the dragons, Kuan, and barbarians were the absolute winners. The remaining 4 races suffered tremendous losses and would not be able to recover for at least 10,000 years. Right after Dai Yu left, a few bubbles appeared in the initially silent 1,000-year blood sea of Thousand Demon Valley. In the depths of a cemetery in the Middle Continent, a series of creaking sounds could be heard from an ancient coffin, as though something sharp was scraping against the walls of the coffin. Blood waves surged in the East Ocean. In the midst of this blood wave, a small boat strangely appeared. A fisherman wearing a green bamboo hat stood on it, and beside his feet was a fishing net. "It's time to reel in the net." The fisherman raised his head slightly and looked at Tianhuang mainland. He murmured softly and a strange sanguine glint flashed through his eyes. Book Abode Reading Website. Chapter 1754. Butterfly Moon Mending Heavens. After the battle ended, the emperors of the human race, the storyteller Old Man and the others did not leave. Instead, they stayed in the Dragon Bone Valley temporarily under Su Zimo's suggestion. Nian Qi had already returned to the God mainland with the Protoss. Su Zimo's heart was still filled with worry. Although the battle ended, Bloodface did not appear from the beginning to the end. The strange thing was that Monk Daming did not appear either. According to his speculation, the calamity of Tianhuang mainland started from the 1,000 Demon Calamity 30,000 years ago, to the Constellation Calamity, Great Qian Calamity and today's calamity that engulfed the 10,000 races. Bloodface succeeded. Although they won the battle, the 10,000 races of Tianhuang mainland suffered heavy losses as well. In the end, it even involved the descent of experts from the upper realm. The bloodline of experts from the upper realm was probably an unimaginable tonic for those who cultivated the blood refinement fiend sutra. Su Zimo did not dare to imagine what realm Bloodface would grow to. Butterfly Moon did not mention this matter when she descended. However, Su Zimo believed that Bloodface's existence could not be hidden from Butterfly Moon. However, after Butterfly Moon descended, she was almost always fighting with the experts of the upper realm and did not have much free time. In the end, Heaven Mending Heavens exhausted the last bit of strength of the Butterfly Moon phenomenon and dissipated. The reason why Su Zimo did not ascend to the upper realm immediately was because of the hidden danger, Bloodface. After the battle ended, the emperors of the human race and the various races had to recuperate. Su Zimo persuaded the emperors of the various races to stay in the Dragon Bone Valley and gather together to prevent any accidents. Although he did not state the exact reason, the emperors of the various races felt lingering fear when they thought of the unforeseen events that happened to the dragons, Kuan and barbarians before the battle. Furthermore, after this battle, Wu Huang's prestige had reached its peak and even surpassed the human emperor of the past. Part of it was because of Su Zimo himself and part of it was because of Butterfly Moon. Since Su Zimo persuaded them, the emperors of the various races did not reject and stayed in the Dragon Bone Valley for the time being. As for the many matters after the battle, they were rather complicated and the emperors of the various races left it to the patriarchs and mighty figures to handle. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Unexpectedly, Tianhuang mainland fell into a long time of peace. After experiencing this battle, the myriad races all chose to quietly recuperate. The Bloodface didn't appear either, as if he had completely disappeared. Other than some rulers who were seriously injured, most of the rulers who were recuperating in the Dragon Bone Valley had mostly recovered. On this day, Su Zimo, the old storyteller, and Long Ran gathered together. Strange, could it be that our previous guess was wrong? The old man frowned slightly and said, perhaps Bloodface has already ascended and left Tianhuang? The old storyteller and Long Ran were both aware of the existence of the Bloodface. Back then, Long Ran had almost died in Myriad Demon Valley. I don't think so. Su Zimo shook his head. He believed that since Bloodface had made such a big move, there was no way he would leave quietly. Long Ran said, in my opinion, the three of us should join forces and take a look at the 1,000-year sea of blood in Myriad Demon Valley. I don't believe that we can't defeat Bloodface even if we join forces. Su Zimo frowned slightly. Just as he was about to speak, his heart skipped a beat and his gaze intensified. He had sensed the existence of Wu Dao's true body. Kunlun Ruins. In the depths of a lake, it was deep and dark without much light. There seemed to be a purple-robed figure lying at the bottom of the lake. Wu Dao's true body was in seclusion here and deceived the heavens and earth. No one could sense him. Even if a living being passed by him, Wu Dao's true body would only be a lifeless rock in the vision and perception of the living being. At that moment, Wu Dao's true body woke up from his seclusion. The figure of Wu Dao's true body rose slowly from the bottom of the lake and gradually surfaced. He opened his eyes that shone with a resplendent divine light. Wu Dao's true body gained a lot from his seclusion this time round. Initially, there was no path in front of him. Without a path, he would not be able to continue cultivating. Now that he had perfected Wu Dao, he had created the remaining path. Wu Dao's cultivation was different from the immortals, Buddhists and fiends right from the beginning. Wu Dao paid the most attention to the cultivation of his body. The fleshly body was a huge treasure trove. It contained endless potential, waiting for the cultivator to activate it. After Wu Dao's true body cultivated his martial soul, his cultivation method was not much different from the immortals, Buddhists and fiends. There were still essence spirit secret skills, heaven and earth dharma characteristics and fusion. However, at the Mahayana realm, Wu Dao's true body did not comprehend any divine powers. Instead, he forcefully refined divine powers and fused them into his flesh and blood. From that moment on, Wu Dao's cultivation method was different from the cultivation methods of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects once more. Naturally, One had to rely on divine powers to materialize and fight against their opponents. However, Wu Dao's true body refined divine powers directly, stimulating the strength and potential of his body continuously. Wu Dao's true body assumed a lotus position on the surface of the lake. His black hair fluttered without wind and his eyes were closed. The fire of his martial soul burned furiously and the power of his physique and bloodline condensed continuously within his body. Wu Dao's furnace refinement divine power was fused into every inch of his flesh and bones, stimulating the life potential of his body. The meaning of cultivation was to continuously stimulate the power of life. All of a sudden, the power in his body reached a critical point and reached its limit. Boom! A deafening sound echoed from Wu Dao's true body. At that moment, it was as though some shackles on his true body were broken. A mysterious circular halo appeared behind Wu Dao's true body and emitted a powerful power. The surrounding void collapsed and the ground quaked. Under the illumination of the mysterious halo, Wu Dao's true body was like a god. Enveloped by the mysterious halo, the power of Wu Dao's true body was far stronger than before. Wu Dao's true body did not stop and continued channeling the power in his body to condense. His true body's aura was still rising rapidly. That was the path created by Wu Dao's true body. Fate Will's secret realm. After the conjoint body realm, one would enter the Fate Will's secret realm after cultivating Wu Dao. Fate wheels were like the growth rings of ancient trees. The more fate wheels one had, the more exuberant one's life would be and the stronger their physique and bloodline would be. In Wu Dao's true body's deduction, there were a total of 9 levels to the Fate Wheel's secret realm. Right now, Wu Dao's true body had only activated the first Fate Wheel. Wu Dao's true body did not stop cultivating and continued to break through the second Fate Wheel. Half a month passed. A second deafening sound echoed from Wu Dao's true body. It was as though another shackle had been broken. Another halo appeared behind Wu Dao's true body apart from the first mysterious halo. The second Fate Wheel. The aura of Wu Dao's true body surged and he suddenly stood up, emitting a terrifying aura. Instantly, the world changed color. Many living beings in the Kunlun ruins sensed the aura and their expressions changed in shock, as though a calamity was imminent. Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 1755. 2 life wheels appeared behind Wu Dao's true body, emitting a purple halo that shone with divine light with a terrifying aura. Wu Dao's true body sensed the power within his body. Condensing 2 life wheels was equivalent to being an emperor in the cultivation world. But now, Wu Dao's true body's combat strength was comparable to Qinglian's true body and the Dragon Phoenix true body. Wu Dao's true body's breakthrough had not stopped. He wanted to condense a 3rd life wheel. Ever since Wu Dao's true body refined divine powers, he had only refined minor and major divine powers. He had yet to refine supreme divine powers. If he could refine supreme divine powers, he would be able to condense a 3rd life wheel. However, it was almost impossible to refine supreme divine powers with the martial spirit fire alone. Wu Dao's true body had to control a 2nd flame. Furthermore, the grade, level and potential of that flame could not be too low. Up till now, the only flame that was worthy of Wu Dao's true body in Tianhuang mainland was the Dragon Phoenix flames. Even the sun essence fire of the Golden Crow could not enter the eyes of Wu Dao's true body. However, the Dragon Phoenix flames was a taboo talent of the Dragon Phoenix true body. Unless Wu Dao's true body refined the Dragon Phoenix true body, it was almost impossible for him to control that flame. Wu Dao's true body had a calm gaze. Over the years, he had refined many divine powers, countless cultivation techniques and secret skills, and his mind contained a large amount of essence. Wu Dao's true body wanted to comprehend a new flame. Back then, Su Zimo had challenged the 3 tribulations domain in the Dao inheritance ground. The 2nd tribulation of the 3 tribulations domain was the burning of the karmic fire. At that time, it caused him immense pain that he could not forget even now. At that time, the karmic fire that burned in the 3 tribulations domain was caused by greed, anger, and stupidity. However, Wu Dao's true body had refined countless cultivation techniques and divine powers. Along the way, the birth of negative karma was not just from greed, anger, and stupidity. Killing, stealing, and lying would result in bad karma. The source of negative karma was karma. In other words, every living being was tainted with karma from the moment they were born and had negative karma to accompany them. However, some of it was good and some of it was evil. Every cultivator was tainted with countless bad karma. Even Su Zimo was not spared. The negative karma of every living being was like a pile of dry firewood. As long as there was a spark, it would ignite a raging fire that would burn their organs and flesh from the inside out. That was karmic fire. Karma would not be extinguished. Karma, karma, karma. Karmic fire, karma. Karma was everywhere. Even if you were a high and mighty emperor, you would still have countless negative karma on you. It was just that no one would ignite it. Even if one had comprehended countless divine arts and secret arts, there would still be karma in one's body. With karma, one would not be able to avoid the pain of being burned by the fire of karma. The martial Tao true body had a new understanding of the karmic fire of the three tribulations domain. Waves of violent storms swept up around the martial Tao true body. The storm connected heaven and earth, containing a terrifying killing power as if it wanted to tear everything apart. The storm was filled with powerful divine powers that shook heaven and earth. A peerless divine power storm. Initially, Wu Dao's true body attracted the attention of countless Kunlun race members when he came out of seclusion. Many Kunlun race members were already rushing over. Now, the formation of this peerless divine power storm shocked many Kunlun race members. "It's that person." Some Kunlun race members recalled something and said, "Previously, someone came to Kunlun ruins and took the initiative to cause a divine power storm. I remember too. Furthermore, that person could survive the divine power storm." Another Kunlun race member said. It was not a secret to the Kunlun race that Wu Dao's true body was refining divine powers in Kunlun ruins. However, these Kunlun race members did not know who he was at all, nor could they see Wu Dao's face clearly. They could only see a faint layer of fog. Didn't this person disappear? A Kunlun race member was secretly speechless and said, "I thought that this person was torn apart by the divine power storm. I didn't expect that his return would actually attract a peerless divine power storm. Let's go and take a look." There were Kunlun race members rushing over from all over Kunlun ruins. In the peerless divine power storm, Wu Dao's true body did not circulate his qi and blood to resist the peerless divine power storm. Instead, he allowed the peerless divine power storm to continuously tear and baptize his body. Streaks of crimson light shot out of the martial Tao body. If someone's vision could penetrate this divine power storm, they would be shocked to discover that Wu Dao's true body was burning with scarlet flames both inside and outside. Karmic fire burning body. Wu Dao's true body was also wrapped in countless karma. And the power of this karmic fire even attracted a peerless divine power storm. However, the strange thing was that the scarlet karmic fire in Wu Dao's true body did not have any divine power. Karmic fire was not a divine power. It was an extremely strange and unique power. Under the burning and tempering of the karmic fire, Wu Dao's true body's flesh and blood became more and more condensed. The karma in his body was burned clean, and his bones and organs emitted a multicolored light. Behind Wu Dao's true body, two fate wheels emitted a faint light, and his aura became purer like a god. Divine powers are no match for karma. Wu Dao's true body formed a strange seal with both hands. It was like a lotus flower, and he suddenly said 6 words that spread throughout Kunlun ruins. It was like a law that followed his words. After these 6 words were spoken, the countless divine powers in Kunlun ruins instantly calmed down. The peerless divine power storm that was originally revolving around Wu Dao's true body gradually calmed down. Although this storm was still revolving around Wu Dao's true body, it was no longer attacking Wu Dao's true body. Instead, it was protecting him. After these 6 words were spoken, a vast pressure suddenly descended from the entire Kunlun ruins. It was as if there was an even more powerful will that towered above Kunlun ruins. In the peerless divine power storm, the corners of Wu Dao's true body's mouth curled up slightly. The burning karmic fire in his palms gradually transformed and condensed into two sparkling and translucent red lotuses. They were like the treasures of the world. These two red lotuses did not have any temperature. However, the aura emitted by these red lotuses was extremely terrifying. Even the peerless divine power storm had to calm down. After the martial soul fire, a second flame was condensed in Wu Dao's true body's body. Red Lotus Karmic Fire. This Red Lotus Karmic Fire did not belong to the category of divine powers, but it could refine divine powers. Even the peerless divine powers in Kunlun ruins could be refined by the Red Lotus Karmic Fire. Under the refinement of the martial soul fire and the Red Lotus Karmic Fire, Wu Dao's true body's cultivation speed would greatly increase. His body would become even more terrifying under the refinement of the two flames. Boom! At this moment, another loud bang came from Wu Dao's true body. Behind him, another purple fate wheel condensed outside the second fate wheel. His aura skyrocketed, and the strength in his body rose. With the appearance of the third fate wheel, Wu Dao's true body had broken through to a higher level. Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 1756. For the past few days, Su Zimo did not cultivate either and was constantly sensing the movements of Wu Dao's true body. It was only when Wu Dao's true body condensed his third fate wheel that Su Zimo retracted his consciousness. After condensing his third fate wheel, the power controlled by Wu Dao's true body had far surpassed Qinglian's true body and Dragon Phoenix's true body. Although Wu Dao's true body had yet to transcend the tribulation and ascend, his strength had already surpassed his two true bodies. In the blink of an eye, another month had passed since Wu Dao's true body came out of seclusion. The emperors of the various races recuperating in the Dragon Bone Valley had recovered from their injuries. After that battle, many emperors comprehended something and even broke through to comprehend another supreme divine power. In the past 2 months, many patriarchs comprehended supreme divine powers and became emperors as well. During this period of time, the races of Tianhuang mainland rested and were unusually peaceful. The emperors of the various races were prepared to leave as well. Outside the Dragon Bone Valley, the emperors of the human race bade farewell to Su Zimo and the others. Abstruse Emperor, when are you preparing to transcend the tribulation? Monk Empyrean Cloud asked. I'm the guardian of the palace after all and have to guard Tianhuang mainland for a few more years. I can only leave after I find the next guardian, the old storyteller smiled. Empyrean Cloud, you've already comprehended 3 supreme divine powers. You can prepare to transcend the tribulation and ascend. Let's talk about that later. Monk Empyrean Cloud shook his head gently and hesitated. Why? The old storyteller asked. What's the problem? Long Ran said, although the tribulation transcendence is extremely dangerous, no one can avoid it. You have to take this step eventually. Monk Empyrean Cloud laughed bitterly and sighed. To be honest, I'm a little afraid, Sai. The old storyteller was silent. The battle 2 months ago had a huge impact on the hearts of the emperors of the various races of Tianhuang mainland. Under the destructive power, even a ruler was like an ant. His life was like grass and he could die at any time. For someone like Su Zimo, even if it was not for Daiyu, he had a strong will and was unshakable. Naturally, he was fearless and advanced with indomitable will. However, most people could not help but feel a hint of fear and hesitation. Su Zimo's gaze shifted. The other emperors fell silent as well. It was clear that Monk Empyrean Cloud was not alone. Suddenly, an emperor said, Actually, the upper realm is not as beautiful as we imagine. That's right. Why are we cultivating? Isn't it to live forever? Another ruler also said, but transcending the heavenly tribulation to ascend is a narrow escape. Even if we survive and ascend to the upper realm, we'll only be at the bottom of the hierarchy. Anyone can kill us. The emperor voiced many thoughts of many years, ascension, transcend heavens, Transcending the tribulation, transcendence, transcend of years of Tao, transcendence, ascension. On the other hand, it was also a kind of fear towards unknown places like the upper realm. The worries of the emperors were not without reason. If they stayed on Tianhuang mainland and exhausted their lifespans, they could still live for tens of thousands of years. However, if they chose to ascend, they might die immediately. Long Ran pursed his lips and said, "What's there to be afraid of? The path of cultivation has never been a smooth path to begin with. Since you've chosen this path, don't turn back." Long Ran was naturally fearless towards the upper realm. Su Zimo believed that Shura Yen Beichen would definitely choose to ascend as well. That was because Yen Beichen had an obsession in his heart. That was to head to the upper realm and search for a power that could revive Qin Pianran. This great battle brought fear to the others. However, what brought Shura Yen Beichen hope? He had witnessed the power of the upper realm. As long as he ascended to the upper realm, he would definitely be able to find a way to revive Qin Pianran. Su Zimo was silent for a moment before looking at Monk Hollow Cloud and the other emperors. He said slowly, "You guys are right. If you stay on Tianhuang mainland, you might be able to live for tens of thousands of years. However, if you ascend, you might die immediately." However, Su Zimo paused for a moment and said, "Only by ascending to the upper realm will you have true hope of longevity. Only by ascending to the upper realm will you be able to control even more power and obtain a lifespan of 200,000 years, 300,000 years, or even longer. Only there will you be able to gain more knowledge and a broader world." Monk Hollow Cloud and the other emperors were deep in thought. The storyteller did not persuade them. For Monk Hollow Cloud and the other emperors, staying on Tianhuang mainland might be the best choice for them. Originally, the tribulation transcendence was extremely dangerous and had a slim chance of survival. Now that Monk Hollow Cloud was fearful, his chances of transcending the tribulation were even slimmer. Right then, a stream of light tore through the air from afar. In the blink of an eye, it arrived before the many emperors. That person had a Confucian crown on his head. He had a fair face, no beard, and was slightly plump. He held a folding fan in his hand. It was Lin Xuanji of Enigma Palace, the storyteller of this generation. "What's wrong? What happened?" The storyteller frowned and asked when he saw Lin Xuanji's strange expression. Lin Xianji calmed his aura and said, "The blood vine race was destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of our race members died without exception." The expressions of many emperors changed when they heard that. Although the bloodvine race was defeated this time, there were still a few emperors and more than 10 patriarchs in the race. Su Zimo did not kill them all either. In just 2 months, hundreds of thousands of bloodvine race members were killed. "The emperor of the bloodvine race is dead too?" the storyteller asked with a grave expression. "He's dead." Lin Xuanji gulped and said, "I still couldn't believe it when I heard the news. I personally headed to the ancestral ground of the bloodvine race to take a look." At this point, a look of fear flashed through his eyes as though he recalled a terrifying scene and felt a lingering fear. That place has been reduced to a sea of blood without any signs of life. Countless bloodvine race members, regardless of their cultivation realms, died. Lin Xuanji said, "You're too reckless." The storyteller was somewhat reproachful as he turned to look at Su Zimo with a questioning expression. Who could have done it? The terrifying part of this matter is that the entire process of annihilating the bloodvine race was done silently, and even we emperors didn't notice it in the slightest. Su Zimo frowned in deep thought. His first thought was Monk Daming. However, what was Monk Daming's motive for doing so? Monk Daming had already cultivated to such an extent after not seeing him for a while? Or rather, was it Bloodface? However, Su Zimo thought about it and shook his head. Bloodface was inextricably linked to the Blood Demon Dao Lord. On the other hand, half of the Blood Demon Dao Lord's bloodline was that of the Bloodvine race, so there was no reason for him to do such a thing. How much hatred did he have to do such a thing to exterminate an entire race? Chapter 1757. Let's go to the 1,000-year blood sea in the myriad demon valley. Su Zimo's eyes flashed with a cold glint as he said in a deep voice. No matter who destroyed the Bloodvine race, he had to go to the 1,000-year blood sea and get rid of the hidden danger of Bloodface. All right. The old storyteller and the other rulers did not hesitate and agreed one after another. Everyone present was a ruler. With a casual attack, they could easily tear through the void and descend from the Dragon Bone Valley to the top of the Myriad Demon Valley. This time, Su Zimo and the others did not hide their tracks. After the war between the races, many rulers appeared at the same time, attracting the attention of many living beings. They did not know what had happened. This time, Su Zimo's Qinglian's true body and the Dragon Phoenix's true body moved at the same time. Wu Dao's true body was still cultivating in the Kunlun ruins and refining his divine powers, so he did not appear. Su Zimo and the others arrived above the 1,000-year blood sea and looked down from above. Back then, when Su Zimo, Monkey, and the others saw the blood sea for the first time, they were shocked. Now, he had cultivated to become a ruler and stood at the peak of Tianhuang mainland. In his eyes, this blood sea was like a blood-colored lake. Strange. Monk Clearcloud frowned and said, "This blood sea is emitting a strange power. Even my spiritual consciousness can't detect it." Apart from the storyteller and the other rulers did not know about the Bloodface. This is the battlefield of the 10,000 demons calamity back then. A ruler looked at the corpses that surrounded the 1,000-year blood sea and muttered softly. Su Zimo looked at the piles of bones under his feet and the 1,000-year blood sea. He suddenly narrowed his eyes and exclaimed softly. Looking down, he suddenly realized that the 1,000-year blood sea under his feet was like a blood-colored eyeball. The skeletons around him were like the whites of an eye. White bones and a sea of blood, these two scenes actually formed a strange and inexplicable blood-red eye. This eye seemed to be staring at the many emperors in the sky. A strange light flashed in his eyes. At the same time, ripples appeared in the 1,000-year blood sea. Strange, why do I feel like I'm being watched? A ruler was a little anxious as he muttered softly. This place is really a little strange, another ruler added. Ah! Suddenly, a ruler exclaimed in shock. He pointed at the 1,000-year-old sea of blood under his feet and said in a trembling voice, It seemed to have blinked just now. What do you mean by blinking? Don't make such a fuss. Speak clearly, Long Ran said with a frown. Exactly. The ruler seemed to have suffered a great shock and could not explain it for a moment. With a grim expression, Su Zimo said slowly, "This 1,000-year blood sea should be the eye of a living being. Just now, it blinked once." What? The old storyteller, Long Ran, and the other emperors were shocked. Suddenly, a deafening roar came from the depths of the Myriad Demon Valley, as if a powerful demon had awakened from its slumber. That roar echoed through the entire Tianhuang mainland. No matter which corner of Tianhuang mainland it was, all living beings could hear it clearly and sense the terrifying power contained within that roar. The living beings in Thousand Demon Valley shivered and did not dare to move at all. Even some of the grand demons and old demons were not spared. In the air above the 1,000-year blood sea, some of the weaker rulers felt their ears buzz. Against the roar, their bloodlines surged uncontrollably. The rulers' faces were pale, and they looked bewildered. Crack, crack, crack. Immediately after, gigantic cracks appeared on the ground beneath the rulers' feet and extended in all directions with the 1,000-year blood sea as the center. An extremely strong demonic chi and blood stench filled the air from the cracks. This time round, all the rulers saw it clearly. Indeed, there was a gaze that belonged to a living being within the 1,000-year blood sea. It was mocking, ferocious and mocking. The ground beneath everyone's feet protruded slowly and a mound the size of a mountain appeared, as though a peerless fiend was about to break out of the ground. Boom! There was a deafening sound and the ground quaked. A massive figure burst out of the ground and rose rapidly. Demonic chi coiled around its body and blood chi surged into the skies. 100 feet, 1,000 feet, 10,000 feet. In the blink of an eye, The massive figure had already surpassed 10,000 feet in height and was almost indomitable. Its knees were buried in the ground as it waved its arms. Its aura was torrential and its might was terrifying as it swept through the entire world. Countless rocks flew everywhere. When the figure rose, the gigantic rocks that it sent out contained extremely great power. Many rulers retreated and spread out in all directions. Under the pressure of that terrifying aura, Long Ran reverted to his dragon's form. However, his dragon's form was only slightly more than 10,000 feet long and was not much thicker than the arms of the living being. The moment Long Ran reverted to his dragon form, the terrifying living being waved its gigantic palm, as though it was tearing through the void and dust, grabbing the 10,000 feet long dragons in its palm. One after another, sharp claws extended from the terrifying living being's claws and pierced through Long Ran's protective dragon scales, creating bloody holes on his body. Long Ran struggled. However, in the hands of this powerful living being, the 10,000 feet long Long Ran was like a python that was gripped by its weak point. He could not break free at all. Roar! Long Ran roared in pain. The sound of a dragon's roar shocked all races. However, at this distance, a dragon's roar could release an extremely terrifying killing power. However, the terrifying living being did not seem to have heard it. He exerted strength in his arms and roared, tearing Long Ran into two, dyeing the void red with dragon blood. It was an extremely shocking scene. The physique and bloodline of dragons were extremely strong. Even if someone could kill a ruler of dragons, there was no way they could tear apart the body of a dragon ruler. How terrifying was the power required to do that? The rulers were stunned on the spot and their faces turned pale. At that moment, even if Su Zimo attacked, it was already too late. When Long Ran saw that the situation was bad, he abandoned his body and escaped with his essence spirit. Even though Long Ran's essence spirit escaped, the terrifying living being did not chase after him. He merely harumphed in disdain and grabbed half of the dragon's body that was dripping with blood and stuffed it into his mouth. Crunch! Crunch! The living being tore apart the flesh of the ruler of dragons and devoured it in large mouthfuls. After escaping, Long Ran hurriedly channeled his blood reincarnation technique and condensed his body again. Even so, he was shocked and enraged when he saw the body that he had just abandoned being devoured by this terrifying living being. It's too strong. Su Zimo had a grim expression. The strength of this living being had even surpassed the previous Shen Huang, Underworld Witch Emperor and the others. At that moment, the dust gradually dispersed and Su Zimo's gaze landed on the living being. The living being had a human face, tiger feet and pitch-black short fur all over its body. On both sides of its mouth, there was a pair of sharp pig fangs that shot into the skies. Behind the living being, there was a gigantic and thick tail that swept back and forth. Its gaze was ferocious and blood light surged as it glared at Su Zimo and the others. Taowu! Su Zimo frowned slightly and compared it to the records in the ancient books. The name of a ferocious beast flashed through his mind. Demon Emperor Taowu. Right then, the storyteller old man and the other emperors exclaimed with shocked expressions. Chapter 1758. How is that possible? The storyteller was shocked and disbelief filled his eyes. The Bai and Demon Emperor should have died in the Thousand Demon Tribulation a long time ago. How can he still be alive? Su Zimo recalled the records of the Thousand Demon Tribulation that he had read in Enigma Palace. There was indeed a demon emperor that died in the Thousand Demon Tribulation. The Bai, haha. The Bai and Demon Emperor reared his head in laughter as he chewed on the dragon's flesh and blood splattered everywhere. The Bai swayed and surveyed his surroundings. His eyes shone with a blood glint as he shouted with a menacing expression, "You guys are finally here. I've been waiting for a long time. This demon is powerful. Retreat for now." Su Zimo had a grim expression and sent a voice transmission to the storyteller and the other emperors without hesitation. Even his two true bodies might not be a match for the Bai and Demon Emperor, let alone the other emperors. The other emperors would only die if they went forward. The storyteller and the others had terrible expressions as well. The terror of the Bai and Demon Emperor had far exceeded their expectations. A strange fluctuation appeared in the void. Like a ghost, a figure silently snuck towards Bai. It was Night Spirit. After the War of the 10,000 Races, Night Spirit had already comprehended two peerless divine powers. Even against the encirclement of the underworld which Emperor and the others, Night Spirit was absolutely confident that he could kill them one by one. However, Su Zimo's heart sank when he saw that. Before he could warn them, Night Spirit had already appeared and attacked. His gigantic and menacing claws grabbed towards the Bai's neck. His sharp tail streaked through the air with a dark light and pierced towards the Bai and Demon Emperor's head. It arrived instantly. A hint of mockery flashed through the Bai and Demon Emperor's gigantic blood eyes. Without even turning back, he extended his gigantic hand and grabbed Night Spirit's body in a flash before Night Spirit's killing move descended. It was too fast. The Bai and Demon Emperor's attack speed was even faster than Night Spirit. Attacking later but arriving first. Not only was it terrifyingly fast, but Night Spirit was also unable to break free from Bai and Demon Emperor's palm. All it could do was let out a series of low growls. The Bai and Demon Emperor exerted strength in his palm, and a series of crackling sounds could be heard from Night Spirit's body. It was as if all the bones in his body were about to be crushed by the Bai and Demon Sovereign. The eyes of the Dragon Phoenix true body shone brightly as he channeled his essence spirit. A gray fog shrouded his fingertips as though it was condensing the flow of time and contained the changes of time. Fleeting youth. The power of time disregarded cultivation realms. No matter how strong the Bai and Demon Emperor was, it couldn't withstand the passage of time. However, the moment the peerless divine power was about to be formed, the Dragon Phoenix true body suddenly felt a wave of dizziness. The bloodline in its body surged and it swayed. The gray fog on the fingertips of the Dragon Phoenix true body quietly dissipated. He had failed. The Dragon Phoenix true body was at a loss. He had no idea what was happening just now. This kind of dizziness came without warning, without any reason, and did not conform to common sense. A mere god dares to challenge me? Bai and Demon Emperor sneered and exerted strength in his palm. Flesh splattered and blood splattered everywhere. Right in front of the emperors, the taboo god puppet was crushed into pieces by the Bai and Demon Emperor's palm, and blood flowed slowly through the gaps of his fingers. Night Spirit realized that something was amiss and its essence spirit had already escaped and reformed its body. Don't go! Su Zimo hurriedly sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness with a stern tone. The Bai and Demon Emperor placed his palm that was stained with the god puppet's blood by his mouth and extended his gigantic tongue, licking the flesh on it. He grinned with a menacing expression. The emperors felt their scalps tingle as they watched. They felt a chill surge up from the soles of their feet and even their breathing quickened. Hee, are you guys trying to escape? The Bai and Demon Emperor laughed. How naive! Boom! The moment he said that, a loud bang sounded from behind the emperors. The emperors turned to look. A gray stone coffin broke out of the ground from a cemetery in the back mountain of Heavenly Dipper sect and soared into the skies, hovering in midair. Sweet! An ear-piercing sound came from the stone coffin. Battle corpse. Su Zimo frowned slightly. Then, under the watchful eyes of the emperors, the lid of the stone coffin slid down bit by bit and fell to the ground. A figure slowly stood up from inside. This was not a corpse, but a living person. Although this person was in the ancient coffin, there was no corpse chi on him and his body was full of vitality. This person wore a dark golden Taoist robe with countless suns, moons, and stars embroidered on it. His black hair fluttered and his eyes shone with starlight. He had an extraordinary aura and was elegant. Patriarch of Constellation. Many of the rulers present widened their eyes when they saw this person. They revealed looks of disbelief and cried out in surprise. Su Zimo also frowned. The cause of the calamity of Constellation was closely related to Patriarch of Constellation. However, patriarch of Constellation, had already fallen in the calamity of Constellation. Unexpectedly, this person who had already fallen was now standing in front of the emperors. What was even more terrifying was that this person had already surpassed the patriarch. The aura that he exuded was on par with the Bai and Demon Emperor. This was no longer Patriarch of Constellation but Celestial Constellation Immortal Emperor. One of the emperors could not withstand the pressure and tore open the void, trying to escape from this place. Just as the void in front of this emperor tore open, Celestial Constellation Immortal Emperor smiled and slapped in that direction across layers of space. Bang! The emperor's body stiffened and his eyes widened. In the next moment, this emperor's body suddenly exploded and his flesh and blood were sucked into the spatial crack in front of him. His primordial spirit fell into the spatial crack. Without the protection of his body, he was instantly torn apart by the void turbulence and died on the spot. The emperor's expressions changed and they secretly gasped. Just now, although the emperor who escaped had only comprehended one supreme divine power, the Celestial Constellation Immortal Emperor's strength had exceeded the emperor's imagination to be able to kill an emperor so easily. Bai and Demon Emperor alone had already made the emperors feel that a great disaster was imminent and unstoppable. Now, there was another Celestial Constellation Immortal Emperor. Su Zimo's expression was solemn. He knew that apart from the two terrifying emperors, there should be another one. Right then, a golden beam of light tore through the air from the direction of East Ocean and fled frantically towards them. The emperors had strong eyesight and saw it clearly. That golden beam of light was an emperor of the Golden Crow race. At that moment, the emperor of the Golden Crow race had a horrified expression as though he had received a huge shock and fled in the direction of Tianhuang mainland. A gigantic white beam of light descended from the skies with an unstoppable power. It was incomparably ferocious and seemed as though it wanted to split the world apart. Heaven Slash! The storyteller old man exclaimed softly. Heaven Slash was a supreme divine power of the Saber Dao. It was the most ferocious and powerful. There were few divine powers that could take it head-on. Chapter 1759. The Emperor of the Golden Crow race sensed danger and hurriedly stopped in his tracks. He channeled his peerless divine powers and curled his body, as though he had transformed into a blazing sun that burned with raging flames. The Heaven Slash descended. Without much pause, the Heaven Slash sliced the blazing sun into two. Blood spewed out and scattered above the East Ocean. The Emperor of the Golden Crow race was dead. I'm afraid the only person in the world who can use the Heaven Slash is the Saber Emperor of this generation, Monk Empyrean Cloud said sternly. Smoky Wave Guest? The storyteller frowned slightly and said, although the Smoky Wave Guest is strong, as far as I know, he has only comprehended 3 peerless divine powers. When did he become so strong? Although it was only a Heaven Slash, it was clear that the combat strength of the person who attacked had far surpassed the emperors of the various races. Another emperor was also puzzled. Furthermore, the strange thing is that he did not appear during the major events that happened in Tianhuang mainland in recent years. The human emperors looked over. Above the East Sea, there was a small boat drifting over in the vast mist. It seemed slow, but it was extremely fast. A person stood on the boat. He wore a green straw cape and a green bamboo hat. From afar, he looked like a fisherman. It's the Smoky Wave Guest. Monk Empyrean said, no matter what, it's not a bad thing for us that he can rush over. Su Zimo shook his head slightly and said sternly, he has ill intentions. Everyone be careful. The hearts of the emperors skipped a beat. Right then, the boat arrived at the shore. The Smoky Wave Guest raised his head slightly and looked towards the middle continent before walking over. Behind him, the void cracked open and figures walked out one after another. They emitted powerful auras and were all emperors. The Barbarian Emperor of the Mountain Barbarian race, the Kuan Emperor of the Cloud Boat Kuan and the Kuan Emperor of the Tiger race were among them. Apart from the Barbarian race and the Kuan race, there were also emperors of the other primordial races following behind the Smoky Wave Guest. Apart from that, There were also some emperors of the human and demon races. In the blink of an eye, there were close to 20 emperors behind the smoky wave guest. Tian Tao? The old storyteller frowned. He stared at one of the rulers and said in a deep voice, "You're actually not dead." Ancestor Tian Tao was an elder of the Enigma Palace. He was already past his prime and had gone missing. Everyone thought that Patriarch Tian Tao had already exhausted his lifespan and passed away somewhere, leaving behind his inheritance. Who would have thought that Tian Tao had already become an emperor and was following right behind the smoky wave guest? Cloud Boat, Tiger Rock. When the Silver Wave Kuan sovereign saw the two traitors who had betrayed the Kuan race and killed so many of his people, his eyes turned red and killing intent surged. He was about to charge out. The dragon phoenix true body hurriedly grabbed her. Yin Lan had just become an emperor, so she was definitely not a match for Cloud Boat Kuan sovereign and Tiger Kuan sovereign. Moreover, now was not the time to settle the score with the Kuan tribe. If they did not handle this properly, they would all die here. It didn't take long for the Smoky Wave Traveler to arrive above the Myriad Demon Valley. The Smoky Wave Traveler, and Demon Emperor, and Star Constellation Immortal Emperor stood in 3 different directions, forming a triangle around Su Zimo and the other emperors. The Smoky Wave Traveler held a fishing net in one hand and a slender fishing rod in the other. He looked at Su Zimo and the others and sighed. "I've been waiting for this day for a long time. You're the one behind the great calamity of the barbarian race, Kuan race, and dragons. Your goal is to cause a war between the 10,000 races." The storyteller asked sternly. "You can say that." The Smoky Wave Traveler smiled and did not deny it. "Where's the Sea Dragon Emperor?" Long Ran could not help but ask sternly. The Sea Dragon Emperor had once attacked and killed the Star Dragon Emperor, causing a war between the 10,000 races. There were many emperors behind the Smoky Wave Traveler, but there was no sign of the Sea Dragon Emperor. "The Sea Dragon Emperor is here." The Smoky Wave guest took off his bamboo hat and smiled strangely. Under everyone's gaze, he transformed into a white-haired old woman. It was the appearance of the Sea Dragon Emperor. Peerless divine power, myriad transformations. The emperors widened their eyes in shock. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would not have believed that the old woman who exuded the chi and blood of dragons was actually a human. Under normal circumstances, the myriad transformations did not have much killing power. However, to be able to use the myriad transformations to this extent and hide from the senses of all the emperors, everyone felt a chill down their spines. The old woman said slowly, "Although the Star Dragon Emperor is old, he still has some tricks up his sleeve. Other than me, no one else can do it." The death of the Star Dragon Emperor had left many doubts. At that time, Su Zimo had questioned how the Sea Dragon Emperor could kill the Star Dragon Emperor in a single blow even if he was close to him. Now all the doubts had been cleared. "You're not the Smoky Wave Traveler." Su Zimo shook his head slowly. "Of course not." The old woman's eyes were bloodshot. "That Smoky Wave Traveler was stubborn and refused to submit to me. I've already killed him." "Blood Demon Dao Lord." Su Zimo stared at the old woman and said slowly, "Since we've come this far, there's no need to hide it anymore. Let me see your true face." "Blood Demon Dao Lord? How is that possible?" The emperors were shocked and confused. "Haha." The old woman suddenly laughed out loud. Her body shook, and under the gaze of the emperors, she turned into a man with blood-red hair in a black robe. His eyes were crimson red. This man was extremely handsome and had a demonic aura. With his hands behind his back, he looked at Su Zimo and nodded. "Very good. You've guessed my identity. It's really you." Although the storyteller was mentally prepared, he was still shocked when he saw the man with blood-red hair. "Blood Demon Dao Lord. It's really him. He's not dead." Some of the emperors who were older immediately recognized the Blood Demon Dao Lord's face and exclaimed. The man with blood-red hair suddenly reached out and grabbed at one of the emperors who was speaking. The emperor's body suddenly turned into a pool of blood. All his bones and organs were almost dissolved in the pool of blood. The man with blood-red hair was the creator of the blood refinement fiend scripture. This demonic technique was so terrifying when released by him. A ruler could not even block a single move from him. The man with blood-red hair opened his mouth and sucked. The pool of blood drew a bloody arc and entered his mouth. The man with blood-red hair smiled sinisterly and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with his finger. He said slowly, "I'm already an emperor. My title is the Blood Refinement Demon Emperor. I should kill you for calling me by the wrong title." The emperors' faces were pale and filled with shock. If by and Demon Emperor and Star Constellation Immortal Emperor were said to be unstoppable, then the Blood Refinement Fiend Emperor was the Blood Refinement Fiend Emperor. The Blood Refinement Demon Emperor in front of them made them feel fear. He was bloody, ferocious, and unfathomable. This Blood Refinement Demon Emperor was even more terrifying than the Swan Ni Demon Emperor and the Constellation Immortal Emperor. The Storyteller's Residence Reading Website. Chapter 1760. Given the Blood Refinement Fiend Emperor's abilities and the nature of the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra, it was completely logical for him to control those emperors. Many of the emperors here were patriarchs who were nearing the end of their lifespans. If they could not break through, they would die from exhaustion of their lifespans. At this moment, the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra was placed before them, a cultivation technique that could increase their lifespans and break through their cultivation realms. Who could resist that temptation? Even someone as strong as Monk Daming chose to compromise after being trapped in the ancient coffin for 40,000 years and cultivated fiend techniques in order to break out of the coffin. However, there were still many things that Su Zimo could not understand. Logically speaking, given the Blood Refinement Fiend Emperor's talents and methods, he should have reached the peak of Tianhuang mainland a long time ago. Why did he have to wait for so many years and trigger calamities time after time in secret? What was the Blood Refinement Fiend Emperor's motive? Why did he save Su Zimo back then? The Bai and Demon Emperor had nothing to do with Su Zimo. Why did he help him back at the 1,000-year Blood Sea? How many secrets did Monk Daming know? What role did he play in all of this? Countless questions coiled around Su Zimo's mind. "You were the one who destroyed the Bloodvine race?" Su Zimo asked. "That's right." The Blood Refinement Fiend Emperor nodded without hiding anything. "Why?" Su Zimo asked. Half of the Bloodvine race's bloodline flowed through the Blood Refinement Fiend Emperor's body. Why would he do something so cruel to the Bloodvine race? Because they deserved to be killed. The Blood Refinement Fiend Emperor's eyes were filled with endless hatred. As though he recalled something, he said slowly with a dark expression, "All of the Bloodvine race deserved to be killed. The same goes for all of you." The Blood Refinement Fiend Emperor's gaze shifted to the old storyteller and the other emperors, saying coldly, "Back then, all of you immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects hunted me down. None of you were willing to help me. Today, I'm going to make all of you pay the price. I want all of you to submit to me. I want all of you to become my blood slaves. Tianhuang mainland is under my control. I want to become the ancient fiend emperor. I want to create my own race. I want Tianhuang to belong to the blood race." These words spread across the entire Tianhuang region, containing an unparalleled will. The myriad races fell silent. The various emperors were dumbfounded as they felt a bone-piercing chill. Su Zimo was also greatly shocked. Even he did not expect the blood-refining demon emperor to be so ambitious. Not only did he want to dominate planet Tianhuang, he even wanted to turn all the living beings on planet Tianhuang into his slaves and obey his orders. From now on, all the races on Tianhuang mainland, be it the human race, the demon race, or the primordial 9 races, would only have one title, the Blood Race. The Swanni Beast Dominator, the Constellation Immortal Dominator, and the Blood-Refining Demon Dominator were simply too terrifying. With a raise of his hand, he could kill all the rulers present. All the emperors had lost their composure. Now, there were only 2 options before them. They could either die or become the blood slaves of the blood-refining demon emperor. The storyteller took a deep breath of air and tried his best to compose himself. He looked at the Swanee Beast Dominator and the constellation Immortal Dominator not far away. Blood Demon, it's fine if you want to dominate Tianhuang mainland. However, I'm afraid the two of them won't agree to turn all the races on planet Tianhuang into the blood race, right? The Swanee Beast Dominator was a demon while the constellation Immortal Dominator was a human. In the storyteller's opinion, even if the two of them were to join forces with the blood-refining demon emperor, it was unlikely that the latter would be able to take over the demon and human races. If he could sow discord between the three of them, there might be a chance for survival. They'll definitely agree. The blood-refining demon emperor laughed sinisterly. That's because they're merely clones that I created. The moment he said that, the faces of the blood-refining demon emperor, the Swanee Beast Dominator and the constellation Immortal Dominator changed and revealed a terrifying blood-colored face. The three blood-colored faces opened their mouths and laughed maniacally. Haha. Their laughter was ear-piercing and chilling. The emperors felt a deep sense of despair as they looked at the three identical blood-colored faces. Some of the emperors looked toward Su Zimo instinctively. Everyone knew that Wu Huang had created two true bodies right now, the Taboo Dragon Phoenix and the Creation Qinglian. Each of them were independent and invincible. However, to think that the blood-refining demon emperor before them was even more frightening. Apart from his true body, the blood-refining demon emperor had also created two independent clones that had grown to such a terrifying extent. There was no need for the other emperors. Just the two clones of the Swanee Beast Dominator and the constellation Immortal Dominator were enough to sweep through Tianhuang mainland. Most of the cloning techniques in the cultivation world did not have an essence spirit and could not be cultivated individually. It was a coincidence that Su Zimo was able to condense his two true bodies. His cultivation path was almost impossible to replicate. However, the blood-refining demon emperor's cloning technique was definitely a top-tier cultivation technique. Night Spirit had once told Su Zimo that there were similar top-tier cloning techniques in the upper world. In fact, Su Zimo even suspected that the blood-refining demon emperor's cloning technique came from the upper world. More than 1,000 years ago, my fiend technique could have been cultivated to perfected level. The blood-refining demon emperor shifted his gaze towards Su Zimo and said hatefully, "Unfortunately, something happened more than 1,000 years ago. Otherwise, I would have left seclusion a long time ago and Tianhuang mainland would already be under my control." More than 1,000 years ago? The emperors looked towards Su Zimo instinctively. Under normal circumstances, Araki Takashi should not have a high cultivation realm more than 1,000 years ago. How could he have crossed paths with the blood-refining demon emperor? More than 1,000 years ago. Long Ran frowned slightly in deep thought. "I've got it." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and his eyes shone brightly as he said slowly, "Your cloning technique doesn't allow you to create 2 clones, but 3. The emperors were shocked. 2 clones were already so terrifying, let alone 3. Continue. The blood-refining demon emperor smiled gently and nodded at Su Zimo, indicating for him to continue. Su Zimo said, 30,000 years ago, you triggered the calamity of 10,000 demons, causing rivers of blood and corpses to be strewn everywhere. Your ultimate goal was to create this clone of the Swanee Demon Emperor. Similarly, the calamity of constellation 20,000 years ago was to create this clone of the constellation Immortal Emperor. And the calamity of Deqian 10,000 years ago was the 3rd avatar that you wanted to condense. This 3rd clone was at the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley. Long Ran shuddered and finally came to a realization. The blood-refining demon emperor's eyes flickered with admiration as he nodded. Very well, continue. Su Zimo smirked coldly. Unfortunately, just as your 3rd clone was about to be completed, someone went to the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley more than 1,000 years ago. Initially, that person wanted to head to the bottom of the Dragon Burial Valley for an utmost treasure of the Buddhist sections. However, he discovered the existence of your clone and destroyed it along the way. The crowd was confused. They did not understand who Su Zimo was referring to, as the person was able to destroy the blood-refining demon emperor's clone and severely injure him. The blood-refining demon emperor seemed to have recalled something upon hearing this. His expression changed rapidly. His eyes were filled with fear at first, followed by deep hatred. He followed Su Zimo's words and said coldly, "That's right. That person was your Miss Dai. Chapter 1761. The emperors finally understood when they heard that. More than 1,000 years ago, that peerless woman in blood-colored robes came to Tianhuang mainland and destroyed one of the blood-refinement fiend emperor's clones. If not for that blood-robed woman, Tianhuang mainland would have fallen into the hands of the blood-refinement fiend emperor a long time ago. At the same time, the emperors suddenly realized something. Now that the blood-refinement fiend emperor chose to appear, it meant that his third clone was already complete. The blood-refinement fiend emperor's fiend technique was already perfected. In that case, the reason why you incited the war of the 10,000 races is to cultivate your third clone. The storyteller said sternly. The blood-refinement fiend emperor extended his finger and shook it gently. Cultivating my third clone is only one of my objectives, but that's not my true intention. The blood-refinement fiend emperor glared at Su Zimo and said slowly, "My true objective is you." Su Zimo raised his brow slightly. The blood-refinement fiend emperor said, "I want to see your final trump card. The war of the 10,000 races is the best opportunity. I was once careless and committed a grave mistake that resulted in the destruction of one of my clones. I won't make the same mistake a second time. Since that woman thinks so highly of you, I'm worried that she might have left some sort of backup plan on you. Therefore, the real purpose of this convention is to force you to use your final trump card." The blood-refining demon emperor smiled proudly and said, "As expected, that woman has appeared." The storyteller's expression turned terrible. The terror of the blood-refinement fiend emperor was not only due to the combat strength he displayed, but also because of his demon-like intelligence that was flawless. The Enigma Palace was adept at divination and prediction. As a storyteller, he was even more proficient in that aspect. However, the blood-refinement fiend emperor displayed a scheming mind that was far above his. Right now, the crack in Tianhuang mainland had already been repaired and no experts of the upper world could descend. There was no one who could suppress this fiend. Su Zimo's gaze shifted between the Bai and Demon Emperor and the star constellation Immortal Emperor before he suddenly said, "Your two clones are the Demon Emperor and Immortal Emperor while you're the Fiend Emperor. If I'm not wrong, your third clone should be the Emperor of the Buddhist monasteries." Smart. The blood-refining demon emperor couldn't help but exclaim and clap his hands. Su Zimo thought of a terrifying possibility. His heart sank. Staring at the blood-refining demon emperor, he asked solemnly, "Where is your third clone? Who is it exactly?" "It's me." Right at this moment, a voice sounded out from nearby. It was warm and peaceful like the sound of Buddha, and it struck directly at one's heart and possessed a magical ability to calm one's heart. All the emperors turned to look at the source of the voice. Su Zimo did not look. This was because he already knew who this person was just by hearing this voice. Monk Daming. Not far away, a monk in plain robes walked over slowly. His face was calm and his expression was gentle. The long hair that covered half of his face had already been shaved off. "Monk Daming, it's really you." Although the storyteller had long known about this, he still felt his heart tremble when he saw Monk Daming in person. The other rulers were even more shocked. Unexpectedly, the two monstrous geniuses from 40,000 years ago had both returned. Su Zimo turned to look at Monk Daming as well. Monk Daming nodded gently to Su Zimo and smiled. Suddenly, Su Zimo felt that the current Monk Daming seemed to be different. It was an indescribable feeling, and it wasn't just the difference in shaving his hair. "So, you're the third clone that he wanted to refine, the Buddha Emperor Daming." Su Zimo looked at Monk Daming and sighed gently. "I should have guessed it earlier." The blood-refining demon emperor looked at Monk Daming as well with an emotional expression and sighed. "After 40,000 years, we meet again." "That's right, we meet again." Monk Daming smiled gently. The two of them seemed like good friends who were greeting one another. Su Zimo could vaguely tell that there was something different. Monk Daming was different from the Bai and Demon Emperor and star constellation Immortal Emperor. He didn't seem to have been completely refined by the blood-refining Demon Emperor. Monk Daming still possessed his own will and thoughts. In other words, the Monk Daming before him could not be considered as the blood-refining Demon Emperor's third clone yet. However, the blood-refining Demon Emperor was neither anxious nor surprised. Everything was clearly within his control. In this lifetime, you're the only one who's qualified to be my opponent, Monk Daming. The blood-refining Demon Emperor said, I don't even take Araki Takashi seriously. In Tianhuang mainland, the blood-refining Demon Emperor was probably the only one who did not take Wu Huang seriously. He was the only one who would dare to say something as such and was qualified to do so. I wouldn't dare, Monk Daming shook his head gently. However, you've underestimated Wu Huang. Monk Daming took a deep look at Su Zimo before turning to the blood-refining Demon Emperor. Wu Huang is stronger than you think. Fufu with just his two true bodies? The blood-refining Demon Emperor scoffed in disdain. Monk Daming shook his head without explaining. Su Zimo watched coldly from the sidelines and remained silent. He had a feeling that Monk Daming seemed to know something. Could Monk Daming have already found out about the true identity of Wu Dao's true body? The blood-refining Demon Emperor said, 40,000 years ago, during our fourth fight, I was severely injured. It was only because you were soft-hearted and persuaded me to convert to the Buddhist monasteries that I had the opportunity to retaliate. Actually, I lost that battle. The emperors were dumbfounded. The shocking battle between Monk Daming and the blood-refining Demon Emperor 40,000 years ago had always been a mystery, and there were no records of it even in Enigma Palace. The only ones who truly knew about the battle back then were the blood-refining Demon Emperor and Monk Daming. Although the blood-refining Demon Emperor only said a few words, he described the general situation of that battle. Su Zimo was shocked as well. Initially, he thought that Monk Daming was the one who suffered a crushing defeat in that battle. To think that there would be such details. Monk Daming shook his head. All's fair in war. I lost that battle and there's nothing to explain. Both of them were prideful people. Although the blood-refining Demon Emperor had an unfair advantage in the past, he did not hide anything today and revealed everything. As for Monk Daming, he was even more calm and did not argue about the outcome of that battle. That was the pride of both of them. You did not kill me out of kindness back then. Since I won, I naturally won't kill you. Suddenly, the blood-refining Demon Emperor laughed. You wanted to persuade me to convert to the Buddhist monasteries, but I refused. Since you're so compassionate and benevolent, I'm going to make you fall into the Fiend Tao. When he heard that, Su Zimo came to a realization. Everything about the battle 40,000 years ago was clear now. The reason why the blood-refining Demon Emperor did not kill Monk Daming was because they appreciated each other. More than that, it was because Monk Daming was initially victorious in that battle. However, he was soft-hearted and lost in the end. That was because Monk Daming persuaded the blood-refining Demon Emperor to convert to the Buddhist monasteries first. That was the reason why the blood-refining Demon Emperor trapped Monk Daming in that ancient coffin and carved the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra on the coffin lid. Since you want me to become a Buddhist, I'll turn you into a fiend. In reality, the blood-refining Demon Emperor was still fighting against Monk Daming with his actions. Chapter 1762. The Blood Refinement Fiend Emperor destroyed Monk Daming's body and trapped the latter's essence spirit in that ancient coffin. He even left behind a single Mingwang prayer beads on purpose. Back then, Su Zimo could not understand why he gathered that information. Why did the Blood Refinement Fiend Emperor spend so much effort to leave behind such a setup? It was only when the Blood Refinement Fiend Emperor explained the situation of the battle 40,000 years ago that Su Zimo understood that although the Blood Refinement Fiend Emperor won, he was indignant. He still wanted to fight Monk Daming. The Blood Refinement Fiend Emperor left him with a slim chance of survival on purpose. If Monk Daming wanted to leave alive, he had to cultivate the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra for that chance. Monk Daming, the titular disciple of the Buddhist monasteries who was benevolent enough to save the masses, fell into the fiend Tao and cultivated fiend techniques, becoming the fiend that the blood refinement fiend emperor wanted to suppress back then. The moment Monk Daming broke free, the blood refinement fiend emperor had already lost. Actually, the fight between the two of them did not stop at all and lasted for a full 40,000 years. Su Zimo lamented and sighed. Even though Monk Daming had lost, Su Zimo was still filled with respect for the latter. 40,000 years of struggle. In that narrow and cramped ancient coffin, there was no light, no sound, no life, nothing, only a lonely primordial spirit. Su Zimo could not imagine how Monk Daming managed to survive for the past 40,000 years. Su Zimo believed that his will was strong and his Tao heart was firm and unshakable. However, if he was in Monk Daming's shoes, he believed that he would not be able to survive for 40,000 years. "You're truly incredible." The blood refinement fiend emperor looked at Monk Daming and lamented as well. "I was truly worried that you would continue wasting your time like that all those years until your essence spirit withered and died in that ancient coffin. Finally, Fufu, you managed to escape." The blood refinement fiend emperor could not help but laugh, not concealing the joy and excitement in his heart. "The fact that you managed to escape means that I won. Furthermore, this time round, you'll never have a chance of turning the tables. Indeed, I've lost the battle that lasted 40,000 years. Monk Daming looked at his hands. "All these years, in order to raise my strength and cultivate fiend techniques, my hands were stained with endless blood. I'm no longer worthy of the title of Daming." Su Zimo sighed internally. That was the reason why Monk Daming gave him the complete set of the Mingwang prayer beads after he knew who he was. Although Monk Daming managed to escape, he felt guilty and was too ashamed to face his old friend. He even grew his long hair to cover his face. Over the years, he must have been in's heart had Daming the heavens. "After Daming, I lost in the battle you Daming me, you Daming emperors. However, this is Daming fiend is not lost Daming die. Daming I fiend, is Daming that's is Daming me. S Daming." The blood-refining demon emperor couldn't help but laugh and say, "Big Ming, don't have any extravagant hopes. Daming day you. Daming Zimus, die Daming die. Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. There seemed to be a deeper meaning behind the blood refinement fiend emperor's words. Why would he never be able to defeat the blood refinement fiend emperor even if he cultivated the blood refinement fiend sutra? The blood refinement fiend emperor continued, "Daming, I've just now said that you're the only one worthy of being my opponent in this lifetime. If possible, I wouldn't want to refine you into my third clone either. As long as you choose to submit to me today, I'm willing to share the world with you. From this day forth, Daming will be on par with me in Tianhuang mainland. Your status will be above all the emperors and you'll rule over Tianhuang mainland with the respect of all races." The emperors were shocked. Everyone could tell how highly the blood refinement fiend emperor thought of Monk Daming. In fact, the blood refinement fiend emperor could even give up on refining a third clone to give Monk Daming a chance to be on par with him. After Monk Daming appeared, there was no one else in the eyes of the blood refinement fiend emperor. To be precise, in the eyes of the blood refinement fiend emperor, everyone else, including Su Zimo, were merely his blood slaves. Monk Daming was the only one who was qualified to be on par with him. Suddenly, a terrifying guess came to Su Zimo's mind as he asked, "Blood refinement fiend, why did you save me twice in the 1,000-year Blood Sea and East Sea back then?" Within the 1,000-year Blood Sea, the blood refinement fiend emperor's clone, the Bai, and demon emperor, appeared and saved Su Zimo with blood-colored bubbles one after another. Above East Sea, the blood refinement fiend emperor transformed into the smoky guest and saved Su Zimo from the hands of the patriarch of the Golden Crow race. Fufu. The blood refinement fiend emperor chuckled. "Araki Takashi, haven't you realized it yet? Even you're merely my blood slave. Among the blood slaves, you're the most outstanding one with the greatest potential. How can I bear for you to die?" The emperors were shocked and turned to look. Even Wu Huang was merely the blood refinement fiend emperor's blood slave. This news was way too shocking. Monk Daming turned to Su Zimo and said, "The reason why the blood refinement fiend sutra is powerful is not only because it can refine bloodlines infinitely. More importantly, those who cultivate this fiend technique will find it difficult to break free from the control of the blood refinement fiend." Su Zimo had only cultivated a small portion of the blood refinement fiend sutra on the ancient coffin. Therefore, he could not see through the essence of this fiend technique. However, after releasing this fiend technique a few times, he could vaguely sense that there was some sort of great horror hidden behind this fiend technique. Therefore, after the Battle of the 1,000-Year Blood Sea, no matter what dangers he encountered, he did not release the blood refinement fiend sutra. Su Zimo said in a deep voice, "In that case, the deeper one cultivates this fiend technique, the harder it is to break free." "That's right." Monk Daming nodded. "Therefore, the reason why I wanted to kill you on 6-Star Mountain back then was because you cultivated this fiend technique and were already considered his blood slave. I wanted to kill you because I didn't want you to become stronger. However, until the end, you did not release your fiend technique and neither did I." Monk Daming continued, "The blood refinement fiend sutra that the two of us cultivated was left behind by the blood refinement fiend sutra and has the smallest flaws. However, the fiend techniques that the blood refinement fiend sutra left behind the greatest flaws. Therefore, it's difficult for others to affect us if we release our fiend techniques as well." Su Zimo was enlightened. Suddenly, he understood many things. It was no wonder why Monk Daming stopped Heavenly Secrets and Purple Flame in the Battle of Heaven and Earth Valley when they wanted to refine their bloodlines. D. Fan's blood sacrifice could not affect Monk Daming at all. On the contrary, Monk Daming could refine it with ease. To put it simply, although they were both cultivating the blood refinement fiend sutra, the two of them cultivated a more complete and high-level fiend technique whereas the others were much weaker. "That's right." The blood refinement fiend emperor looked at Su Zimo and said proudly, "Araki Takashi, from now on, you'll be considered the highest level blood slave under my command. You'll only be below Daming and me." The blood refinement fiend emperor's words were like a great gift to Su Zimo.